Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started. It is 6:15, and I know everybody has had a very busy day and also want to get home. Okay. So we're going to, Lisa, are you ready for us to, can you still hear me? Yes. Okay. So we're going to call our Washington Central Unified Union School District School Board meeting to order. My name is Flor Diaz-Smith. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the chair of the school board, and this is your servants. Your board is around sitting with us, and our administrators are here too. Thank you for making time to be here with us. Any adjustments to agenda, board? No? Seeing none, I'm gonna move into the reception of guests. One sec. I know that you have public comment. One sec. So we're gonna get into that. I'm just gonna give some instruction. The what? It's for the board. It's for the board to adjust the agenda. And we do have public comment coming. I promise. So with that, good evening, everyone. As we gather here tonight, it's important to acknowledge that today is El Día del Niño in Guatemala. I know that's foreign for most of you. A special day dedicated to celebrating the joy and potential and innocence of all children. In Guatemala, this day is a reminder of the importance of nurturing, protecting, and prioritizing the needs of the youngest members of our society. How fitting it is then that we are here tonight to discuss decisions that will profoundly affect the future of our own children. So to all the children present and all your children inside of you, because I do believe that we all carry that child inside of us, I just say Feliz Día del Niño, which is today. The decisions we make this evening are not only about the present, but will shape the lives and opportunities of the next generation. Tonight, we face a difficult task, voting on the potential closure of 2 schools. We recognize the deep sense of loss and the heartache this might cause just having the conversation, and we don't take this responsibility lightly as a board. However, it is our duty to address these challenging issues head on, ensuring that every child in our district has access to quality education in a vibrant, connected, and sustainable learning environment. This process is about much more than just closing school. It's about reimagining how we can grow stronger, more inclusive schools that provide equitable access and programming to all our kids. By allowing any hesitation or fear to guide us, we risk diminishing the opportunities for future generations. We owe it to our communities and especially to our children to be courageous and make thoughtful, intentional decisions now. We can give our school, if we make thoughtful and intentional decisions now, we can give our schools and towns the tools they need to flourish, even in the face of demographic challenges and financial constraints. This is about ensuring that every child, whether in our community, in our communities, has the support and opportunities they deserve. As we move forward, after the configuration presentations, there will be time for public comment. We will have public comment at the beginning too. Additionally, there will be time for public comment after the meeting, after we have done all our deliberations. Please remember that each speaker will have 1.5 minutes, and I encourage everyone to approach this conversation with kindness and respect. Multiple perspectives can coexist, and it's essential that we remain focused on finding solutions that benefit all of our children and our communities. Finally, I would also like to recognize how incredibly hard this process has been in our administrators. We want to take a moment as a board to acknowledge the tremendous efforts and dedication of our leadership team through these challenging discussions. I would like to ask them to stand so that we can give them the recognition that they truly deserve. We are really lucky to have you. So could you, there's a lot of you sitting in the public and you guys are doing the work. So please stand up. So now let's open it to public comment. And we have mics. Spencer?
I won't need a mic.
Okay.
Well,
but for some people might need it.
Item 4.1 under board operations. I find the wording of 4.1 to be worded such that it's a foregone conclusion that we are going to vote to close Worcester and Calais. I want that point rewritten.
Everyone here that's speaking, please speak to the microphone so that people online can hear what you're saying.
All right, let's start the clock again on my 90 seconds. I find item 4.1 to be written in a way to state that we are going to vote for it. A vote to close Worcester and Calais Elementary. That's a foregone conclusion. This item needs to be restated, rewritten.
Thank you. Any more public comments before we start? And there will be plenty of time for public comments right after presentations too, but go ahead and we'll bring the mic to you. Just 1 second.
So tonight, the board plans to vote on whether or not to put the question of closing Doty and Calais Elementary Schools.
Could we get people's names?
Yes, please.
My name is Katie Spring, and I live in Worcester, and I have a sixth grader at Doty. I don't believe the board and administration have made a convincing case that closing Doty would be in the best interest of our students, teachers, the town of Worcester, or our district as a whole. And at the same time, I respect the importance of each community being able to determine their own paths forward. We've spent a lot of time talking about equity, and a critical aspect of equity is autonomy, the ability of communities that would be the most impacted by a decision to have a say in that decision. So while many of us in Worcester who do not think it would be in the best interest to close Doty, we respect that some of our neighbors in Worcester, as well as our neighbors in Calais, may have different perspectives regarding school closures. Tonight, the board's not choosing whether or not to close our schools, but rather whether or not to let us decide for ourselves, especially since the board has committed to honor and not attempt to override the votes of each community. Our superintendent has also committed to making sure that if either or both towns do choose to keep our schools open, our students would receive equitable resources and treatment regardless. So this evening, as we present our case and talk about why we believe keeping Doty open makes sense for Worcester and the district as a whole, we also want to speak to the voters of Worcester as well as the board, the administration, and our district neighbors. And we will respect whatever decision the board makes regarding whether or not to move forward with the process. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sabra Fairbank. I've had students in this district for the past 16 years. I represented the town of Worcester, and I had both my sons attend Doty and U32. Following up to what this young woman has just stated, I guess I'd like to know how many representatives there are of the towns that are going to be taking our students. Is there anyone here representing the schools that will be taking our students tonight? I don't know how we can have any form of assurances of equitable distribution of resources if I do not have those individuals. And growing up in a small town myself, I would like to hear from other representatives of those towns that will be taking our students and how they are going to be addressing having their space, taken by our students. Because there's a lot of things at risk here. Sorry, yes, I can. That's what I'm looking at, that I don't see fair representation across the board as to other individuals that will be impacted, especially those communities that will be taking on our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other community members? Oh, there's two.
Honestly, may have heard of that, just look at this. I'm trying to get it as best I can.
Go ahead, Jen, please.
I'm a performer and I know how to use a mic. Let me give you a little explanation about how to use a mic. Hold it here, nobody can hear you. You want to hold it here so that you're speaking directly into it. And you want this much space between your lips and the microphone. Hold it here, speak directly into it, and speak slowly.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jen. So, yeah, Rich.
I'll do my best. I'm Caitlin Hawansky from Worcester. As a Worcester voter who may be asked to weigh in on whether or not to close our school, I asked whether the board and administration have presented sufficient and reliable data to show that the potential benefits of this decision clearly outweigh the potential negative impacts, not only for the students and residents of Worcester, but for our district as a whole. Have they shown that the 3 elementary school model will achieve better academic outcomes, improve student well-being, save taxpayers significant money, and create financial sustainability in the long term, provide flexibility to accommodate potential shifts in population, promote the core values of the district, improve equity, increase enrichment opportunities for every student, improve staff experience to promote retention, and not cause undue and unjust harm to the communities where these schools are located. In August, the board revised its criteria for assessing possible reconfiguration models based on feedback from the community. The board voted to include additional criteria because they thought that they were needed to decide whether any proposed model was workable. The configuration matrix, the echo of yourself is really hard to deal with. The configuration matrix, which is based on these revised criteria, shows insufficient data for the 3 elementary school model in the following categories. Is the model financially sustainable? Is it fiscally responsible? How would it impact towns, including property values and community viability and well-being? Along with many others in my community, I have observed that the data presented to the board has shifted enough over time that it is hard to see it as reliable. Other critical data that would be necessary to make such an important decision has not been gathered, modeled, or presented. Therefore, as a Worcester resident, I would not vote to close Doty if given the choice.
Thank you. Yeah, pass it to, and please introduce yourself and your town.
My name is Naomi Heindel. I live in Worcester and have a first grader in Doty. I have deep concerns about the equity of the decision you're making tonight. Worcester has the lowest median incomes in our district and the highest numbers of kids eligible for free and reduced lunch. In Worcester, we know that Doty is part of what keeps our small rural town vibrant and connected. Please do not take that away from our community, our families, and our kids. Doing so will only increase these inequities. I also want to point out that on the per pupil spending front, it is clear from the data that Doty is not the school to close. We are doing so much already to lower per pupil costs. Doty has steady enrollment, low per pupil spending, and creative, enriching, multi-aged instruction. At the very least, per pupil spending cannot be used as an argument to close Doty. At the most, it could be used as an argument to say that Doty is one of the most successful schools in our district, given the budgetary constraints that we've continued to face. Doty proves that small schools can be successful financially, socially, and academically. As prices in Chittenden County rise and more young families like my own move to Washington County's rural towns, I truly think it would be short-sighted to move forward with this consolidation. If we do, I would bet that in not too long, the board would be proposing considerable expansion at Rumney to make room for new students. Yes, the funding model for public education in the state needs to change, but no, closing Doty is not a step in the right direction. Any initial cost savings would be very short-term, while the community impact and impact on student learning and sense of community would be long lasting. Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna wait for more community input right after our next, we're gonna now move into the next part of our agenda, which is really two small presentations. So without hesitation, it is my pleasure to introduce Jess DeCarlis, a true champion of public education with over 2 decades of experience in the field. With 13 years of dedicated service in both municipal and state government, Jess has been instrumental in shaping education policies that benefit students at all levels. She was recognized as the 2009 Rowland Fellow by the prestigious Rowland Foundation, and in 2020, she was honored as the regional champion by the New England Secondary School Consortium. Jess has also served as the division director at the for Student Pathways Division at the Vermont Agency of Education, leading efforts to expand educational opportunities statewide. Her work in creating equitable pathways for learners has made a lasting impact on Vermont's education system. Today, Jess will deliver a very short presentation to bring a little oxygen into the room as we look forward to the future. This is an opportunity to provide some brief information about community schools. Once we determine the best configuration moving forward, Jess will return to discuss things in more detail. We won't be having a Q&A today on community schools. We're going to move right into Stephen and his team's presentation, but feel free to save your questions for an email. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Jess to our school.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me? Am I screaming at you? So I'm moving over here because I don't want to have my back to anyone. Floor is going to be managing logistics for me. And I have a timer because I do want to make sure that I'm within time. I do have a tendency to speak quickly, and unfortunately, I feel like it's going to be exacerbated. But if you have any questions, please feel free to share that with the board. I'm happy to follow up. I'm also happy to come back because I think we just want to keep this high level. So with that, I want to say thank you for welcoming me into your community. I am just going to be focusing on sharing about the implementation of a pilot community schools program in Vermont. Yes, I am an independent contractor right now, but I was at the agency for 8 years. I have a former colleague, hi Deb, in the audience, and I did oversee several programs, but I'm here solely to talk about community schools. So with that, I'm wondering if we've got this queued up. Okay. It's just a careless, yeah.
It's just not showing there. One sec, we're just having a little bit of technical. It's showing here that it's sharing, so the people can see it, but nobody. Oh, what is it? Where is the bus? Oh, you're sharing this bus. Yeah.
I did come early and we tested this and it did work. I'm a witness.
It was working a minute ago. It says that it's paused. It's been sharing. Oh, it's right there. No. Let's stop share again.
Yeah, you just have a blank screen that you're sharing. You're not sharing the actual PowerPoint.
Okay, let's stop share. Share. Okay, it's just a little worried about my this stuff, but okay, I'll do the desktop. This is what I did before, but. Oh, okay, so wait.
Do you need to move it over to the other screen?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do this stuff. Share, and hopefully nobody's doing it. Where did it go?
Okay, so you're sharing behind there, so.
That's okay. Sorry. So, okay.
Okay. I think we've got it. Thanks for your patience. This is a classic thing that happens. So can you progress to the next slide, Flor? So I did want to just share a few opening propositions for transparency. I think it's, yes.
Mike, really?
Yes, is this better?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I know, and after those instructions, sir, they were very good. So a few opening propositions for transparency, just so you know where I'm coming from. And if we can go to the next slide, Flor. So one, I believe deeply that the future is a destination of value. And predominantly it's because we value all of our students, particularly in public education. And it's important that we know, and certainly we've had this experience with the pandemic and with the floods, we can't predict the future, we can't control the future, but we can work to create conditions by which our students are able to take risks, to experience joy, and to be designers of that future. Next slide. I also believe that public education is an act of democracy. And what I mean by that is I don't mean that it's a political act. It is literally foundational to our democracy, as it's stated in our state constitution, as it's outlined in Title 16, and that it's important that we think about the role that public education plays in ensuring that we continue to have civil discourse and have civic engagement in our youth. Next slide. And finally, because again, I'm openly being biased about this, I believe that community schools allow us to realize the promise of public education. I have here that opening section of Title 16, but more importantly, what we've seen is that community schools is a realization of decades of public policy and education reform in this state. Next slide. So with that, what are community schools in Vermont? This is a big question. And I think even more importantly, is it something new that we have to do? This was something that people asked all the time. So a little background. In 2021, in June of 2021, the state legislature passed Act 67, the Vermont Community Schools Act. And we know that passing legislation in the middle of a pandemic really sets people up for success. But I think at that time, what folks saw is that we had an opportunity in all of this disruption to realize the promise of public education and to design public education in a way that meets and serves educational equity in this state. Next slide. Okay.
Did it jump to me?
So up here, just quickly, we had 5 intrepid supervisory unions and districts who were our pilot implementers of the community school model. What you can see, and the reason I shared this map is predominantly, these are highly rural, geographically spread out districts and supervisory unions, a mix of organizational structures, pre-K-12 to elementary to middle to high to an entire supervisory union, and with high free and reduced lunch and historically marginalized populations, and they came into this with a desire to serve their students. Next slide. There are 5 pillars of Vermont community schools, and I have a little video, it's 4 minutes, I want to just give you a heads up, because I am not going to read through what you are going to see is excerpts from the legislation with a lot of words on them. But just to quickly go through the next slide, Pillar 1, integrated student supports. Pillar 2, expanded and enriched learning time and opportunities. Next slide. Community and family engagement, Pillar 3. Pillar 4 is distributed leadership and practices, and Pillar 5 are safe, inclusive, and equitable learning environments. But let's hear what Vermont community schools and those pillars are in their own words.
upon the very specific needs of the community that they're serving.
So while we all have very different projects, the outcomes are all the same among all the schools. We want increased community engagement. We want a safer school. We want a more equitable school.
All schools seek to be community schools, but this model helps, I think, to prioritize what it could look like.
Basic needs have to come first in order for children to learn.
Where we see that change in student outcomes, and this is just an example, I have a high school student who is on the fridge of dropping out and is now going to early college next year because of the resources that Sam and her crew have predominantly helped provide.
We have students pursuing any number of fields that are related to or completely different from what they're getting in school.
Not all child learns the same as the next. She prefers to be a grease monkey, which I'm perfectly okay with. Her father is a mechanic. My son's father is also a mechanic. So for me, I feel like it's reinforced the importance of education for her, but it's also instilled in her the want.
So I think it does give students a sense that school isn't confined to, this physical space, and there are more opportunities for them, and we can connect with them with those opportunities.
So we see this multi-generational distrust in the system, right? And Sam and her crew are really responsible for shifting that mindset.
So that people understand that the building is a space for the community.
As a place for community to gather, to have conversations, to kind of personalize education and where that leads.
So to have someone who can maneuver their schedule to be out in the community, to be that liaison to the resources, services, supports, and also to get to know the needs of the community by being in it is really unique.
We've been able to partner with other organizations where in the past maybe we have competed for services or programming, and now we are working more collaboratively together.
This environment, the physical, emotional, and spiritual environment we're in needs to be accessible to students and cannot do them harm.
Do they feel like their culture and language that they're bringing is respected and valued in the classroom?
One of our goals in terms of the equity pillar was to do some school-wide reads, and now we're doing supervisory-wide reads, also holding conversations and facilitating conversations at our local library.
If we don't do that work, then our students who might be typically marginalized students won't have access to their education.
If the learning was more accessible, more relevant, more flexible, and the teachers could see the results of wrapping services and coordinating services between students, that we should see a reduction in absenteeism in 9th grade, and we saw that reduced by almost 50%, which is crazy, right?
What I want people to know is that every building needs community schools coordinator. Every single building needs somebody dedicated to this work.
And it's been really great to see youth just really come out and become themselves, whatever that may be. So it's been super incredible. I think it's, it's hard to realize that the grant's ending.
I went to Philadelphia to that national conference. I was like in shock. There are 3,000 people that are doing the same work, but I'm one of 5 community school coordinators in Vermont, right? So I just think the community school approach is something whose time has come.
Okay, next slide. Next slide. Okay, so what are Vermont community schools in practice? They're not singular programs. Can you go back?
Oh, sorry.
It's not funding. They're not single strategies. It's a fundamental reconfiguration of how we deliver high quality education, or as I like to say, it's how we do school. It supports realizing the goals of our existing student-centered learning regulation and generally our education framework in this state. It supports closing equity gaps, and it leverages the unique context of Vermont. And here I recognize I'm using some language around place-based services and relational assets. But what I mean by that is partnerships, right? How we engage with each other is something to be leveraged in service to this common goal. Next slide.
If the next one here, it's just, sorry, it's like a.
It's just a little delay. This really builds anticipation. What's coming next, everyone?
I don't know what to do.
Okay, hey! So again, just being open with my bias, community, someone's. We go
Coming,
back?
it's coming, I'm not touching
Okay.
it again, it's just for some reason.
It would be great if I was Oprah and I was like, okay, everybody, look under your seats, right? And then it was like, there was some great
Don't
thing
leave
like a
word
car.
to the technology, sorry, Jess.
Okay, so
now I
community
need to-
schools are centers of and for democracy, and particularly what became clear in the ethnographic work and the participatory action research we did over 3 years is that it helps to cultivate democratic principles, community, inner spirit, responsibility to self, others in the natural world. And particularly what we found is community schools, and this is a portrait of a community school built to align with, are folks familiar with a portrait of a graduate or portrait of a learner? But it describes the attributes that we want to guarantee for any student who comes through our school system. Those were the attributes of a community school. So if you can go forward.
There's a little delay in what we see here, and so sorry for the people
Okay.
online.
Seems to be
You
going
guys
back
are
and forth.
advanced. Yeah, it could also be due to my old computer.
I'm going to give myself some extra time because of the delays. No, I'm joking.
No,
I'm just
it is-
saying if I go over. Can we progress the slide?
We did.
There it
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
Okay,
Don't
so
touch-
again,
yeah, don't
One
touch.
more.
one more.
It's gonna take a second.
Yeah, but she's speaking to
Bullshit.
Okay, I would just, yeah.
But I can't see it from here, and we have a hard time hearing, and now it's been almost 20 minutes, and I have gotten nothing from this. This is not why I am here. I understand you have an agenda, and yet, why are we here? We want to talk about the fact that you want to close Palace and Doty. That's what we came for.
We understand.
My apologies.
We understand. We understand. Okay, we have a couple of minutes left. Do you wanna?
We're almost there.
For the record, my name is Craig Klein.
Okay.
Former school district moderator here in Palace.
I'll just remind people that we will have plenty of time for public comments. We are just bringing a little oxygen to the room. There's go ahead, just finish and.
Okay, so I'll just get through. So there are various systemic themes, and one of the things that I looked at as I was asked to give this presentation, my understanding is that folks wanted to hear a little bit about community schools, and I do apologize.
Okay, but please, I will ask people to be respectful and model good behavior for our students too. So we are all in this together. Please be kind. We're gonna finish and then we'll move on into the next part.
So if we can just progress through this slide and the next.
Is it the next one?
Yep, the next one. So one of the things that we also discovered through a research practice partnership with UVM is that community schools support implementation of strategic plans and meeting the goals of existing regulation. So next slide. I was really excited to see the work that you've done in your strategic planning, and particularly around your core beliefs. So if we can progress to the next slide. So for example, shared beliefs for student success. Pillar 1 is integrated student supports, but I saw that you had core beliefs around well-being. And when you have this language, my understanding is you'll have access to this presentation. The question would be, okay, so what is this in?
What is that?
Just touch the screen.
Yeah. What does this outcome, what are the shared beliefs for student success, and what might we see? So if you can click. At OSSU, at the Hazen Union High School, we saw a 50% reduction in absenteeism in 9th grade, more than a 30% reduction in disciplinary referrals. At White River Valley SU, we saw a 7% decrease in the number of behavioral referrals. Next slide. And looking at Pillar 2, expanded and enriched learning time and opportunities. You have rigorous curriculum and instruction, but if you read the language, you're already doing this work. So creating opportunity through a future forward communities, what is the outcome of your committing to these core beliefs? Click. At Cabot, over 50% in grades 1 through 6 and 25% in grades 7 through 12 participate in the after-school program. At White River Valley SU, 75% of students in the 6th grade across the supervisory union were proficient or exceeding in the state summative assessment for math. Next slide. Pillar 3, active family and community engagement. Again, you have this here, community engagement and relationships. Making that collective development of a shared destination, what are the possible outcomes? We had partnerships in White River Valley that provided 40% of students to participate in their after-school program, or 220 attendees attending art nights, Art Van Gogh nights in North Country, or 10 unique community members providing mentorship of 179 hours to students under 10 at the elementary school. Next slide. Pillar 4, collaborative leadership and practices. You have this, transparent and responsible leadership. You've already done this hard work. For a collective commitment to a shared purpose, what are the potential outcomes? A reduction in OSSU from 7 formal grievances to 0, 100% staff retention at Hazen Union High School, and 100% staff retention in the elementary school at Cabot. And finally, Pillar 5, safe, inclusive, and equitable learning environments. Different language, but it's the same concept when you read your definitions. Humanity, justice, community, and belonging, shared experience for emotional growth. What are the potential outcomes? Student participation in restorative truancy programs resulting in all students participating, decreasing their absenteeism, 0 external student referrals in FY24 at Cabot, or 100% of students on IEPs with grad goals graduating on time. So this is the end of the presentation. The next, I just want to say thanks to partners at UVM, the participating schools, Ned Castle, who put together that video that hopefully you'll be able to see in real time, and of course, the Agency of Education and the House Education Committee, but mostly to thank you. I understand there's frustration in the room. I'm happy to come back when folks have more time.
Thank you. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Jess. Thank you for making the time to be here with us, and we'll be in contact. Okay. So now,
as people arrive.
okay, so we're going to move into our next part of the agenda, and Stephen, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you. Let me second while I bring up mine. So the presentation that I have is what was provided to the board yesterday. So I'm just going to take a few moments to go over some of that information. It's not new information for us. As I start this, I just want to say a big piece of gratitude to the leadership team for their work over the last several months. In addition to their regular duties, they've expended a lot of energy, emotions, and time to bring this information to the board and to the broader community. And I hope the information that we've presented will help our board make an informed decision. We'll be able to provide more certainty and stability to our system. I know in my conversations around the district, I've seen and heard the anxiety and stress. I want to let people know that I see it. And that our staff is carrying that stress and still providing an excellent education to all of our kids. And so I do appreciate that. I'll also say our current educational funding environment and the need to build a budget that is within the means of our community while also meeting our student needs will be guided by our decisions tonight. And I appreciate your thoughtfulness and difficulty in weighing the many criteria as you do so. And finally, I really do want to thank the community for engaging in civil and kind discussions of their concerns. Healthy discourse is rare these days, and I appreciate working with a community that can model it so well. So thank you. So the information that's here, as I said, it's not a lot of new pieces. Here's the goals of our strategic plan that we looked at before. Our district values that we just heard more of as well. Not going to spend a great deal of time on those. And then I just want to speak quickly to the enrollment numbers. I know this has been one of the concerns that we've had around the shifting enrollments that we've seen. What we're finding is pre-kindergarten is really difficult to nail down. And what we identified this weekend was that we were double counting students, the ones that were in our pre-K and K programs between Doty and Rumney. We were double counting those kids because they've been registered at both schools. And so that's one of the reasons why our numbers have fluctuated some, is that we've had to really account for what's happening with our enrollment. These numbers are accurate as of Sunday for the enrollment that's in our district right now. And then our projections for next year are based upon mostly on rolling up all of our students one grade level. And then our pre-K numbers are estimated pre-K 3 and 4. So those 2 grade levels are estimated based on the number of pre-K 3 kids that we have right now. And those numbers are they're going to change again. We go through an entire process during the year in which we try to identify those kids, and we bring those and we find them essentially, so that we know more and more throughout the year. We usually don't have these pre-K numbers finalized until late into the school year. But we will do our best to make sure that we identify kids as quickly as possible, and we reach out to the community to find those kids and see if they are interested in attending our pre-K programs. That has been one of the most difficult parts of identifying how many kids are going to be at each one of our schools. And I know that that's caused some concern because our numbers have fluctuated as we try to get a better grip on those. These configurations from you in the audience, I know this is difficult to see. We've been showing these to the board many different times, but the configurations that are here, this is what we look like this year, and our staffing levels. I'm not going to try to spend a lot of time. I think this is the slide that we definitely want to take a look at. These budgets were provided in the board packet. So you can see each of the 4 budgets that we were able to put together to show our potential configuration. Our baseline budget, for everybody's information, is taking this year and looking at exactly what the structure is and moving it to next year. And so if we were to do exactly what we were doing this year, next year in all of our schools, that budget, based upon the increases that we do know of, and with some inflationary increases as well, that baseline budget would be approximately $38,446,000. Now, the proposed 3 elementary and moving the 6th grade to U32, our budget estimates for that are about $36,055,000. You can see that the number of elementary classrooms would change. So next year, if we did it exactly as we're doing it this year, we'd have 39 pre-K through 6th grade classrooms. If we do the proposed configuration, we would have 30.5, and I think what's a half classroom? The pre-K program is a half-day program. And so we would have 30.5 pre-K through 5th grade classrooms if we were to move the 6th grade over and have 3 schools. The 4 elementary school model, which the board asked us to look at, we looked at it 2 different ways. If Calais were to close and if Doty were to close, and that would be through the vote of the communities, not the board action itself. And so the 4 elementary model with Calais closed would have a baseline budget of about $36,900,000, my apologies. And we would need about 32 elementary classrooms to be able to make that configuration happen. And then if we had 4 elementaries in which Doty were closed, that would be a baseline budget of about $37,494,000, and that would require 30.5 classes as well. I know you may look at that and say, how is it that you could do 3 elementary schools and do the closure of Doty and still have the same number of classrooms? It's just the configurations that happen when you move those students to the other schools, in which you can combine some classes and other places you cannot. So back when you look at the configuration options, the different ways that we looked at that, you can see how those classrooms might play out. And that's what we did here with the, this is the fiscal year 26 with current configuration. And for the board, and I know I apologize to the community, it's very difficult to see these. We did model what the configuration would be, but not the budget, on a 5 pre-K through 5 elementary and 6 through 12 at U32. So you can kind of see how the classrooms would be arranged there. And then there were the 3 school model, which we've seen several times. And then there's the 4 school model with Calais closed and 6th through 12th grade at U32. And it shows you where those classrooms would be. And then I would also say that we cannot do the pre-K 5 4 school model without moving the 6th grade. I showed this as a model, but you would not have enough classrooms at East Montpelier in the Calais closure, and you would not have enough classrooms at Rumney if it were the Doty closure for us to have the 6th grade at the elementary schools if one of those schools closed. Is that clear to the board how I'm saying that? Okay, just want to make sure. We would need to have the 6th grade at U32 to make a 4 school or a 3 school model work due to the number of classes needed. All right, and so those, you can see the rest of those. Like I said, the board, I hope that now those charts make a little more sense because we've looked at them several times. So that's there for your information in terms of making a decision. And then I wanted to just reinforce, there were some questions around several other areas. Transportation is one of those. Transportation, in our conversations with First Student, our bus company, there is really not a whole lot of room to reduce bus routes at this point in time. The mileage that our buses travel is one of the big concerns. I would also say I was ready to come to you and talk to you about what Doty might be able to do this year because of its busing concerns. And as of today, I learned that we are going to be down 2 bus drivers. One is leaving and another one is having a medical procedure. So we are actually not going to have all of our bus routes available. And so I can't say, let's add a bus route when I'm not even sure that we're going to be able to run all the ones that we have. We're going to work on other solutions. I know that that's not what you wanted to hear, and it's not what I wanted to say when I put everything together. But we will look and see what we can do. We can't expect cost savings immediately from the busing. So I don't think it's an area where we would want to consider that. There were also questions around the 6th grade move to U32. This language is a little bit different than what was in the packet. We wanted to make sure that we said this correctly. Moving the 6th grade to U32 will not require the hiring of more teachers at U32. This is due to the declining enrollment that's occurring there. And what we would look to have is all of our 6th through 8th grade teachers, we would encourage them to be middle grades endorsed. That allows us greater flexibility. And there's always been a conversation about the placement of teachers. And I know this is the cold way to say it. This is people's lives that are affected. I understand that. But we will follow the collective bargaining agreement that has been outlined by our teachers union as to how that process works. And so we would make sure that we followed that. And that our teachers can utilize their professional development funds to help obtain an endorsement. We provide a generous benefits package around their professional development funds, and they would be able to use those in order to get those endorsements. So we do have support for them. And then I would also say, this is what I said earlier about the pre-K numbers. It is very much a moving target, and we're trying to make sure that we get a better understanding of how many students that we have or potentially have within those programs. And as I said, the enrollment becomes clear later in the school year as parents decide on whether or not they're going to send their children to pre-K. And then before and after school childcare was a question that has come up. This is a very difficult thing to model cost. We don't have, only one school has before and after school care. Other schools have some, a couple of schools have before care, but a couple of our schools don't have any. This is something that we do through our Community Connections program. And just, I think it's hard for us to know how to go about budgeting for this, because right now the way the program is set up is before and after school care are paid for by the participating families, and the Community Connections program is who staffs it. We are understaffed right now in the programs that we have, and they're not even full programs for all the schools. And that's why we had difficulty in modeling the costs of these programs. But it would depend upon our final configuration as to what we might or might not be able to offer. And so it's also, is it the will of the board to have childcare that is provided through Community Connections, or actually childcare that is provided by the district? Because Community Connections does not get all of its funding from the district. It gets some of its funding from the participating families. So there's a lot of questions that we would need to explore and look at there. And then I just have a couple of final thoughts that I just wanted to throw in there as we're making our decisions. So with no changes in configurations, our resources are going to be stretched thin, and staffing will be both underutilized and overburdened depending on your location. So there are some places in which the services that are offered would be offered by somebody for a smaller number of students than in another school, and how we balance that is going to be it's going to be difficult. And so I just want to make sure that we put that out there. And this is a value statement that I would make, and this is from me, is more students in a building do allow for some more diversity and opportunities for students to learn in a greater diversity of groupings. And so it gives them the opportunity to learn with a different number of kids, but it also gives them the opportunity to learn in ways that they're not just one-on-one, in some cases where they could be in small group. And that happens in our special education programs, and it happens in some of our intervention programs as well. And I just also want to make sure that we remember, because our students go to 6 schools in our district. There is not a school in our district that isn't welcoming and safe environment where students are cared for and provided a great educational experience. And I think we need to just remember that as we move through this process, that that all of our teachers and all of our staffs care deeply about our students, and that this is not about one school being better than another, or worse than another. And I just want to make sure, because I do hear from some of our teachers who've said that, it hurts a little bit when it's said, well, it's implied that their school isn't one that is welcoming. And I would just say, I've been in all of our schools multiple times, and they are all welcoming places with excellent, excellent educators in them. And so with that, I really appreciate your time today. And I know there's probably a couple of questions so we can clarify with the board. Yeah.
Questions, board?
Yeah.
Does some of the Community Connections funding assistance come from the Early Childhood Education Permanent Fund?
So
is there assistance for families?
So I would have to double check. I'm looking
You're
for.
nodding. I don't know.
Yes, Suzanne. Yes. Some of our families do receive funding through the Early Childhood Assistance Programs.
Okay, then my second question is regarding transportation. When were the Worcester bus routes created? Was that prior to
the current Worcester Doty bus route was done prior to merger, but it was also done with assumptions that also don't fully match up now, because we did not have the joint
Worcester
program.
community. It was created by the Worcester.
Yeah, it was created by the Worcester School Board back when that board was in.
Okay,
in
thank you.
play. Yeah.
The transportation slide, to me, it doesn't answer the questions that I had about transportation, like specifically, do we expect bus routes to get longer? And specifically, do we expect to need more bus routes?
No, the bus routes won't get longer. The busing would change so that if you were at 3 schools instead of 5, or 4 schools instead of 5, the buses would be able to come more directly towards those schools instead of, right now, one of the biggest issues with busing for Worcester is that the bus has to do a big loop through the entire community. Instead, you would possibly have 2 buses that came through the community to the next community. And so you could do that. Travel times, according to First Student, we're not going to see a big change in the travel times overall, although there are some routes that it could improve, particularly when we've got one very long route out there. Thank you. Yeah. Chris?
The Worcester bus route, another bus route for them, is there a pricing on that? For when a bus driver would be available. And I just want to point out that even though the Worcester board may have created the route before merger, we didn't pick up on the inequity of those students being on the bus for a very long time as a group.
Understood.
So it's not like.
I'm not, I hope I didn't cast blame.
I
Right?
understand. I
That's
just
not what I was
wanted
trying
to
to
clarify that we didn't pick up on it either.
So the cost of a bus for one route would be $447 a day, which would be about $71,000 for the remainder of the school year, were we to add another bus to our bus routes.
Okay.
And so we do have that cost. And should we be able to find a driver and start doing that process, I think that would be a decision we would need to come back to the board for. Do we need additional funds, or are those funds within our operating budget as it stands?
Thank you. Also, just another question. What were you saying about the pre-K not working at a with the 3-school configuration unless the 6th graders move to U32? Is that what I understood, or I didn't understand enough?
Yeah, there are probably a couple of ways we could talk about it, but in order to have enough classroom space within any of our schools, if we had the 6th grade there in a consolidation scenario, we would not have enough classrooms. There's another piece to that, is that our classes themselves that we would have are not full classes. So if we did have students move into the district during that time, we would be able to absorb them within the existing classes that we had. And I would just say the caveat to that, I mean, we don't expect and don't foresee any major influxes of kids over the next several years.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So a question around the bus situation, and so it's kind of like in order to be equitable, it doesn't mean the first one on is the first one off. So is there the ability for schools to take a look at seeing in the other towns, this bus is actually not as utilized? We can consolidate perhaps a bus route I'm from Berlin, I'll say in Berlin, so that then that makes it available, another bus driver available for that. Is that part of the?
So we started this year with 2 fewer buses than we did last year. And so we've already done some of that consolidation. So we have buses. I know of one bus in East Montpelier that has 56 students on it. And so, so we are trying to utilize our buses the best way possible. And we'd already had a reduction in the total number. So that makes it a little difficult for us. It helped us with our driver shortage, but now we have another driver shortage.
Michaela?
Can you just clarify with the bus
Okay,
route
use the mic, just use the mic.
Oh, sorry. With the bus route changes that happened this year, were the ride times in Worcester impacted?
So no. So hold on. What affected the Worcester bus ride time was the joint program, pre-K and K programs, not the number of buses that we had. And so that's what caused this change in the bus service, which is why I would say that while Worcester, the assumptions that Worcester made when it put in that bus are different now. And that's why we're going to try to find some additional. I was hoping to come to you and say I was going to add a bus, and then I found out I didn't have 2 drivers. And so we're going to keep working on a solution for this.
Any other questions from board members? Go ahead, Julia.
If we agree to send all 6th graders to U32, and there's no need for increased staffing there, as we've been told, how many additional students will teachers at U32 have in their classes? And the second part of that question is, how will they be able to give individual students the same amount of attention that they're able to give them now with smaller classes?
So I would offer that the enrollment has declined enough at U32 over the last year and that over the next couple of years, and that our class sizes at U32 will remain pretty much the same average class size that they have. U32 will have reduced by almost 100 students in a course of 3 years. And so adding 83 students in, which is how big the current 5th grade class is, will not be a significant number of additional kids in the school. So the decline in enrollment that we saw over the course of several years at the elementary schools is now at U32. And so you're seeing that declining enrollment there. You also have a number of kids who attend early college and are engaged in our career center. That has reduced the overall number of students in the building as well. And so U32 can actually absorb quite a number of students. The 83 students is not a difficult piece, and class sizes will remain relatively as they are now.
I'd love to see the exact figures that support that.
Well, they are in one of the past presentations, so I can forward those to you.
Any other board members? Questions? If there's no any other board member questions, we're going to move. We had scheduled 30 minutes for more public comment. So we have people online. We have, just so that people know, we have 145 people online and we have people on here. So I just want everybody to be, you know, when you do comments, it's going to be the minute and a half. Please be civil. Please, everybody's here to serve our communities. And so please be kind. I'm going to start online for a minute because we went just with people in the public. So I have 2 hands so far. Mimi, do you want to unmute? Sorry, I should say Marcia. Do you want to? Hi, Mimi. Do you want to introduce yourself and unmute?
Yeah. So I'm Mimi Hill. I live in Worcester. I want to echo the concerns of a prior speaker about economic justice. And my concerns are more with, I mean, I think the board has done a terrific job thinking about education, but I am more concerned about the welfare of the village of Worcester, given the school consolidation. It's been my observation that often when decisions are made that affect a group of communities, it is the poorer communities that end up in the worst position. I don't think that's intentional, but I'm worried that it will happen here. Doty is the only school in the district that is right in the center of its town. Losing it would be like having a front tooth pulled. It's an important part of our identity, as well as our sort of immediate downtown community. I am wondering if families with kids are going to want to move to Worcester, given that there's not a school in town and there will be a large vacant building right downtown. Also, no one has really addressed what happens to the school building if Doty closes. It seems to me that the cost of the upkeep of that building would be shifted from the district to the town of Worcester, and we can't afford it. We can't afford to renovate the building for another use. So what happens then? That worries me economically. I do understand the rationale behind closing Doty, and much of it makes sense. But I think if you look at the larger impact on the town itself, Worcester will end up much worse off. And once again, the poorer community gets hardest hit. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to skip to one in the public here and then go back online. So raise your hand. Right behind you, Jen. Yeah.
Hello. My name is Felicia.
Yeah, it's not working.
Don't worry.
Hi, my name is Felicia Weeks, and I have 2 children here at Callis. I try to stay neutral, and I spend a lot of hours looking for real credible articles or studies about how the suggested closing of our rural schools can help some money for the budget. I couldn't find much of anything. In fact, I found studies about how the cost per student increases for the school that absorbs these displaced students. I also found how school closing negatively affected the community as a whole, showing how younger families like my own leave the area. I myself grew up in a town in Texas where the classrooms had double, sometimes triple the number of students that Callis has. And as a child with a learning disability, it was real easy to blend into the background because of the lack of staff in the number of students. As a mother with a son who is on the spectrum and needs that extra support, it makes me nervous to think of him being thrown into a new environment with more stimulation. I know it sounds selfish, but like any other parent here, I want what is best for my son and keeping Callis open is what is best for him. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna now shift, Mr. Gilbert, do you want to unmute yourself?
Introduce yourself, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. You might remember that in a previous comment I made to the board, I spoke about a recent article in the New Yorker magazine about the closing of schools around the country. One superintendent who had been involved in closures in Rochester, New York, I think it was, said that the one thing he regretted was not listening more closely to what his heart was telling him about closing schools, the impacts on students, parents, and other community members. Many impacts were negative, and he only saw that after the schools had closed and children and parents struggled with adapting to the changes. When the board votes tonight, each board member will take with them the responsibility for voting to close 2 community schools where children have spent many hours of their lives, or take with them the responsibility for voting to keep these community schools open. As someone who served 20 years on school boards, I can guarantee that each of you will remember and think about it many times how you vote tonight. It's such an event, and it will become part of your feelings on how public education is provided to children, perhaps your own children. The financial result of closing Doty and Callis schools will be minimal, minuscule in fact. You will be back next year trying to find more savings. You're not thinking in big enough terms to meet the budgets you will be building. You must turn from thinking that closing 2 small schools will serve the district's financial problems. You must think in bigger terms. You must commit to working towards merging with Montpelier, specifically on the high school level. That's the only reconfiguration that can provide long-term budget stability. Don't waste time closing schools that serve their communities well. Thank you.
Hey, Paul, do you want to introduce yourself? Just wait for the mic so that Jen can get to you.
Spencer's got.
So I'm going to start off. I'm Cole Bliss. I grew up in Callis. This was my elementary school. I moved away for a while. My wife and I moved back. In the meantime, I had a son that attended East Montpelier Elementary. It wasn't a bad school, but it's not Callis. It's not the same feel, right? My other students, 3 of them, they attended Berrytown. Again, that's a large school. That didn't have this feel. We seeked out a home in Callis to give my kids this opportunity in this school. I have classmates sitting up there. You guys want to talk about a community feel? Travis, Julie, hey guys, how's it going? Rachel? Okay, you guys don't understand what you're taking away from families in Callis and Worcester. I understand you want to save money, but you're destroying communities in the meantime. And tell us, please, not one of you have brought in evidence from a school that's merged that's happy about that decision. There's nobody sitting up there, nobody presenting information from these merged districts that are happy with the outcome that happened years later. Please, please, please don't destroy our communities and save a couple dollars today when tomorrow that's going to change. What's going to happen? You close down this school or Doty, and then the aging community, all of a sudden, we replace those homes with younger generations. Now we have students again, right? Now our schools they merged to, they're now too small. Therefore, we have to put an addition, add staff. That's going to add an increase of taxes to all of us because you close schools down.
Thank you. I'm going to move on online now, Mr. King, and then Lisa, you can go after. Please unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
I'm Richard Keene. I'm an ex-school board member from Callis. I spent, I don't know, 8 years on our school board there. I'm very much against this. One thing I've suggested many times in the past was looking at this objectively. If you're even going to consider consolidation, why haven't you looked at a single elementary school at high school? Now, the reason I say this, I don't support it. I think it would, just like most of these speakers, this will really damage the impacted communities, and they are the poorer communities. I think if you, Floor, and Berlin and Rumney were facing closure of your schools, the tone, and you may not be supporting this so much. So we need I mean, a single school, a large closure might actually save a significant amount of money. The research I've done in other states, Maine being the most recent, who did this consolidation, their costs have gone up radically. So, is this worth the damage that's going to do the communities? And I would argue that it doesn't. And I say, if you do it, you should be realistically looking at citing a single elementary at U32, because by God, then you can actually really consolidate security, many, many things. And, where you might actually save some money. And if the situation continues to where populations drop, you're close enough to Montpelier that you could actually get into other student groups as well.
Thank you, King. Lisa?
Hi, Lisa Hanna, Worcester. My first just point is that I think the timing and placement of the community schools presentation raises a lot of questions about our preparedness to take this vote. Many in Worcester have been asking for modeling around community schools for months, and the fact that it was forced into this meeting at this time really illuminates the ill preparedness to vote on the proposed closure of schools right now, given that I'm not sure how the board was supposed to take that information. My second point goes to Stephen's presentation. I believe Stephen said that a 3 or 4 school model would not work without sending 6th graders to U32. Some questions were raised last week about whether Doty would be kept as a K-5, K-6, pre-K, like in any sort of model as a community or as a town school. I would just ask, like, if Doty were to keep its school open, have we thought about, if Doty votes to keep our school open, have we thought about if you send 6th grade to U32, what that looks like for Doty? Is that going to pressure the board to actually reconfigure or remodel Doty in a different way that doesn't actually keep it as our community school? And that hasn't been discussed at the board level. I would ask the board to discuss that tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. Go ahead. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Charlotte Hannah Bassage, and I was a Calais school board member for many years, as well as a board member on the supervisory union. What bothers me tonight, and has all along, is the very limited search for alternatives to our reduced enrollment and our desire for quality. So closing one school, closing 2 schools, moving 6th grade. Those are just obvious alternatives, but there's so many more. Somebody mentioned, what if one school became a magnet for all the specials? Somebody mentioned what happens if Calais and East Montpelier merge and Calais does pre-K3 and East Montpelier does 4-6. Now, I don't have any financial information because you don't give me any. So I can't say whether these make sense financially, but I can say that the 3 alternatives you've given, closing 1 school, closing 2, moving, they don't make sense financially. The savings are meager. I'm totally with Alan that if you want to save money, bring those high school students from the floodplain up to the top of the hill. But that would save money and make sense. So I think that if we simply tried harder to find more creative solutions, they're out there. Many of us have lots of interesting ideas. This was a very limited consideration of alternatives. Not such a good job.
Thank you, Charlotte. Sonia, I had seen your hand up. Did you put it down? I just don't want, I want to make sure, because I want to move on to the next part. Do you want to speak in?
Sure.
Go ahead.
My name is Sonia Andrews. I grew up in Calais, went away for about 35 years, and I'm back. I remember walking through the doors of Callis Elementary School when it opened, and I was in 4th grade. It was a huge moment of pride for the Callis community to move its kids from the distributed system of one-room schoolhouses into this central school. And it's an emotional argument, I'll acknowledge that, but to hear about it being closed now is genuinely awful. And the savings, I did this is quick and dirty. There's approximately 10,000 people in the 5 towns. Closing those 2 schools would save approximately $2 million. Sounds like a lot of money. It's $200 per person. That is this is an insane step for no savings, basically. So I would really urge you to rethink and come up with some more creative ways of managing what is admittedly a crisis.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonia.
My name's Hannah Howard. I live in Worcester. Research on towns that experience school closures documents economic impacts such as significant losses in property values, property tax revenues, public investment and population, as well as stunted economic activity. These factors, in combination with the possibility of the town of Worcester taking on the full cost of maintaining the Doty building without income sensitivity, could mean significant tax increases for nearly every Worcester resident. Claiming that the 3 elementary school model will improve equity without acknowledging these potential drawbacks isn't fair. In Worcester, where many children qualify for free or reduced lunch and families have lower incomes, these negative effects could hit even harder. Some people see this proposal as a form of systemic classism, which is a serious concern that we need to address. Another inequitable effect of this debate on our community has been not knowing whether or not we will have a local school next year, which has brought anxiety to our children, teachers, families, and the community as a whole. Some have asked the board to slow things down, saying the process feels rushed and the data has been inconsistent. At the same time, we need to ask what the consequences of dragging out these debates would be. I encourage the board to either make a clear decision about moving forward and hold town votes, honoring the results as promised, or acknowledge that the case for closing schools hasn't been made and move on to finding other solutions. Imagine if we could spend all of the time, energy, and resources that have been spent debating school closures this year instead of working together as a community to identify cost savings and also improve our existing schools.
I'm gonna just do that we have 2 people online. We have 2 people here. Oh, 3 people here. Okay. I don't even know where to go. So people that haven't been able to speak at other community forums would be great. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry. What's your time frame for the meeting tonight? And do you have a time that you're going to actually take a vote? Are you going to take a vote tonight?
Yes.
And what's just so we have some
right
idea.
After this, the board will start deliberations.
So is it, about what time are you going to call off a discussion and take it?
I'm just trying to honor that we have a lot of community members here. So we were able to save a little time from before. So in 15 minutes, I'm gonna call the public comment.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matt Gardner-Morse from Callis. Looking at the numbers that Steve presented on enrollment, I noticed that the school with the largest decrease in students is Rumney, with 79 students projected to loss since 2015. And I granted it's a bigger school, but as a percent, it's 45% of the students in Rumney are gone since 2015. That's 8% more than Callis and 23% more than Doty. So why are we closing the schools that don't have the greatest decline? It doesn't make sense to me. There's certainly enough space in the remaining 4 schools that if we're looking at having 4 elementary schools, the school to close, the simplest school to close would be Rumney. You close Rumney and divide those students to the other 4, you bring them back to almost the 2015 level. So when you're looking at 4 elementary schools, why are we looking at the school with the greatest decline? We don't have equity within our schools, and we're not being transparent here and why we're deciding on closing Doty and Callis when Rumney is the school that has the greatest decline, 45%, almost 45%.
Thank you.
So we don't have equity in between the towns here. This is not fair. This is not right.
I'm Andy Seaman. I am in Worcester and building a house in Calais where I'm going to die. My wife, Sophia, is from East Montpelier. We came back a few years ago. So I'm one of the new people, right? And bringing our kids here. We didn't know where we were going to land. We had to put our kids in a school that wasn't district dependent, went to a farm and forest school, and we finally moved them to Doty this year. I have a son who has a triple learning disability and some sensory struggles, and he's brilliant also. And he struggled through school. He spent 2 days at Doty, and he didn't ever want to go home. He has exploded there. This school is changing my family's life. We come here and we hear about community schools. Doty is a community school. It is a beautiful, beautiful place, and I could not see my kids thriving in a larger school mixed with multiple different communities that don't have that connection, that aren't the heart of a town. This is too fast. This is a mistake, and we need to slow down.
Thank you. Yes, and then we're going to move online, and then I see you.
Hi, I'm Deborah Bogart, and
I see you too.
Hi, I'm Deborah Bogart. I used to teach at Doty many, many years ago when it was only 2 rooms. I also taught for 16 years at U32 in a program called Branching Out, where students connect to their community. You're talking about protecting the innocence of young children. I've seen, after 16 years of being at U32, how 7th and 8th graders try to be like high schoolers. I do not agree on any level that we should send our 6th graders there. You're not protecting the innocence of childhood. The world is full of too much information. We need to really nest with our young children.
Just hold a minute. Pam, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah,
Introduce
thank you.
yourself.
Hi. I just want to echo what Charlotte was saying in terms of, Pam DeAndrea Callis, in terms of trying to think of outside the box of what we could do. And I remember this coming along when consolidation of the district was being, the people that were for it were like, oh, we can do all these great things if we share resources, like a gifted program, which my kid really needed when he was little. He did not, I love being in Calais. My daughter did wonderfully in Calais. It was a wonderful school. I would hate it for it to close. My son did not do well there because there was no gifted or choice kind of education for him. And he thrived at a more independent school that would allow him to do that. Tried U32, that was a nightmare for him too. So there are kids within this district that aren't being served because of their special needs. And I heard the parent with the boy with sensory issues. That was my kid too. I hear you. And my kid would have done even worse you know, besides Callis in a classroom with a lot of kids on the spectrum, stuff like that. I feel like we're, by just getting rid of getting rid of 2 schools and saving $200, you're not going to realize how that could impact families that might have a kid who needs something more. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine, and then I'm moving into both of you. Go ahead, Catherine.
Hi, Catherine Codius, Worcester, she, her. I had a longer piece to say, but there's been so much that's been brought forward tonight, and I really just want to speak as a mother of a pre-K student at Rumney. We had to transition to Rumney this year after the merger, and I've just seen firsthand the really negative impact of that. My son and several of his classmates wear noise canceling headphones and say that it's too loud and too crazy. And it is nuts in that room. 18 students is objectively too big for pre-K. And I think that they're doing an amazing job. The educators are really rising to the challenge, but this is not the nurturing start we want for our students. For, as was pointed out, $200 a head. That it makes no sense to be making this big of a change. There's so much at stake, and we're already seeing how negative this impact can be. Thanks.
Thank you. Can we move to up here under? Yeah.
Hi there, my name is Sarah Bell. You guys hear me okay? This mic is very bouncy. I'm a Worcester resident. I've got 2 kids in Doty. I absolutely love that school. I think Andy's not over here anymore, but essentially, there you are. I totally mirror what you were saying about how special Doty was. And I just wanted to say thank you for the community school presentation. We already have that in Doty, so you basically proved our point, all the things that we already have in our amazing school. I don't know much of Callis, but I'm sure it's just as incredible. It's another small school that's very near and dear to my heart here. Flora, I did want to just talk to you for just a moment. I know this is a public setting, but we had a conversation 4 or 5 months back at a coffee shop in Montpelier, and it was very serendipitous, and I was really grateful to kind of hear your perspective on this. You know, we spoke of change, we spoke of, you know, gracefully moving through transition, but I did walk away from that conversation feeling like there was not actually ears to hear other perspectives. I felt like there was an agenda here that there wasn't actually room. So a lot of these meetings I felt like have been very performative in that they're not actually, like maybe you're hearing, but you're not listening. And so I just asked the board tonight to really sit with yourself, look in your heart, like what actually is pushing this decision, because ripping communities apart is not equitable in the slightest. You know, you're implying that Doty being open and Callis being open is somehow taking away resources from our 3 other schools. That, like, equity would say that, like, taking out the schools from our most vulnerable, smallest communities, like taking those resources, those precious resources away, that's not equity. Like, that's, nothing about that was equitable. So I just asked the board to please ask yourself what truly is pushing this decision tonight, because it's not money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I'm Craig Line. I really apologize for my outburst earlier. I meant no disrespect. I'm frustrated. There are a lot of emotions, and I apologize. I was a Callis dad. My little girl is now 29 years old. She had a great 7 years here, K through 6. I was a soccer coach. I served on the strategic plan committee. I came in and read to the kindergartners. I came to the band concerts that were truly painful, and to the Halloween parties. In short, it was all a great community was, and I was so proud to be part of it. I've heard other people mention that word. Sonia online earlier, others who went to school here. I was proud, as I am now, to wear my Calais Cougars shirt, worn, stained with paint, but it meant the world to us, my wife and I, to be here. I know parents who moved here because of the school. We had a series of great principals. We had amazing teachers. And I'm really gratified to look in this room and not see just people from my generation, but the new generation with little kids voicing the same love of this community and Doty and this school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a couple of people. Yeah, oh, priority. Go ahead. No, it's a child, please. Go ahead. It's a kid, all for kids. That's why we're here. So please.
Hi, I'm a student at Doty School and I have gone there my whole life. And Doty community is an amazing one, to say the least. I know many children, including myself and sister, who will be largely impacted by the closure, not mentioning the many kids at Calais who will be largely inconvenienced. It's not fair to the children of these schools, and it would mean many children who love and learn and thrive at our schools that would be largely inconvenienced. Doty may be small school, but Worcester is a small town and Vermont is a small state. We close these schools and we lose a part of Vermont.
Thank you. We have one, I'm gonna move online. Lucrecia Bruce.
Do you want to unmute yourself, please? Can you hear me? Did I say her name right? Lucrecia? Lucrecia? Oh. Okay, maybe she can hear me. I have a community member that is in the room, but did not want to read comments out loud. So she's asked me, she sent her comments and she's asked me to read them. So I'm going to do that because I want to allow that too in the last few minutes that we have. She said, I will try to keep this brief, understanding that your time is valuable. As a resident of a neighboring town in our district, I've been hesitant to share my thoughts on the closure of Doty and Calais schools. My perspective doesn't seem to align with what you've been hearing from many in the community. However, in recent weeks, I've come to realize that I'm not alone in my views. Small communities offer a sense of cohesiveness, but they also create environments where pressures and judgments can be run high. The same holds true in a small classroom. Personally, I'm reluctant to voice my support for the closure of these small schools for two reasons. First, I'm not a resident of Calais or Worcester, but rather a neighboring community. And second, I fear potential alienation from my community for holding a different viewpoint. Nevertheless, I believe this decision affects not only me and my family, but also the broader community. In my experience as both a parent and a former teacher, I witnessed the challenges that can arise from overly small classes. My own child is currently grappling with the limited social opportunities that come with a small class size. They struggle to connect with others due to the lack of diversity in friendship and role models. In my teaching experience, I often found smaller classes under 15 to be more challenging. Fewer opportunities for vocabulation, fewer ideas and experiences to enrich discussion, and less variety in social and academic dynamics. I also wonder if we're making a decision that is truly best for the students or one that is best for the community. This may not be the same answer, and this is what makes the decision so difficult. I don't want to see Calais or Worcester suffer as communities, but I also feel strongly that as has become our Vermont motto, we are stronger together. I believe there is a great potential in centralizing our elementary schools to create more diverse learning environments and foster greater connections across communities. Many students I've spoken with over the years have shared that feeling, confined by being in the same peers for 6 years when there is a single class for each grade level. They long for the chance to grow and to meet new people and believe this is an opportunity we could offer them through the more unified system. I share these thoughts with respect for the difficult discussions ahead. I trust that you will consider all perspectives as you navigate this process. I hope my experience might offer a helpful viewpoint. Thank you for the time and consideration. Scott, please introduce yourself. And
I'm Scott Bassage from
we
Calais.
have two. Oh, sorry.
I attended the Pekin School as a fourth grader. It was a 1 through 6 school. There were 12 of us students. It worked beautifully in that single. Young children really need to be educated close to home. I think older children would benefit from a larger school, but young children have to be close to home. One more question. Affordable housing is a huge issue in all 5 of our towns. And I think finally, the push to achieve more affordable housing is going to happen. And that's going to knock your projections off by a lot. I believe in the next 5 years, there'll be at least 7 affordable houses in Calais. Add 14 kids to Calais Elementary, and what have you got then? We'll have to build a new school maybe. Thank you all.
Thank you, Scott. And we have 2 people here, and then we're going to move into our board deliberations. So Allison and who's got the mic? Yeah. Yes.
I'm Mary Alice Prophet. My 3 children went through Calais Elementary all the way, and I was the president of the parent teacher and neighbor organization here, as well as a coach, and have served in other roles in the community on boards. And my perspective is different right now. I'm not going to hide and ask you to read it. I'm just going to be very direct. The state of Vermont has a viability issue. We're one of the whitest and the oldest states in America. So this conversation here is not, we're not having this alone in a vacuum. This is happening across the entire state of Vermont. And I want to say that I think we're at a tipping point where we need leaders, with all respect, to be direct and honest with us about the real issues. Because what I know for a fact from working with my neighbors and from owning a restaurant in Mont Popular, in which I knew many people from the Worcester community, is that Vermonters will step up to the plate and do what needs to be done in a crisis. Can I get a witness on that? Can I get a little applause? So if there's a real issue, it's not just $2 million. What is the issue? I went to meetings 2 years ago about this to get the process started. And again, with respect, there was a lot of woo-woo, writing values on pieces of paper. The community is ready to solve this problem. So if we want to keep our schools, we need more housing. That means changing the zoning laws. We're going to have more diverse communities. We're going to have more Black and brown kids in our community. Does that align with our progressive values? Are we willing to be okay with that? Are we willing to really change, or do we just want to look the same, look back with nostalgia on 1840 or whatever, when Vermont looked the way that it looked back then? So all I'm saying is we're ready to do our part as citizens and as parents and as voters, but we need less woo-woo and value talk and more direct information coming from leaders. These are the options, and let's get to work and let's roll our hands up. I came in here ready to support a consolidation, and what I've seen tonight in this meeting, I need more information. What is actually going on, so that we can do our part to support change if it's necessary. The only constant in life is change.
I just want to be fair to the rest of the
I
people
will hand it
that
back, but I'm
have
going to finish my
sentence
sentence and say the only constant in life is change, and we're okay to change as long as we have the information that we need. Yeah.
Can you pass the mic to Allison, please? We're done with Allison was waiting. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Allison. I live in Middlesex. I have 3 children who've gone through the schools, 1 in Rumney, 2 at U32. I'm feeling a little sick in my stomach right now. I think I'm gonna get eggs thrown at me. But I just want to be really open that I think data is where we have to go. And we don't have good data. There is no good data. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen when we make these changes. I know being a school board member is hard because I did it, and there was no behind the scenes crazy making. It was more, we don't know, we're doing the best we can. So with respect to, I don't want to say anything about consolidation because it's a really emotional thing for everybody here. I will say that I thought long and hard before I drove here about whether if this were Rumney, would I let this be okay? And yes. And if you guys decided that you thought closing Rumney was well because our enrollment is down and that Doty has a better facility that's easier to access, that makes more sense for buses to get to, then I would be okay with that. I also am really excited for my daughter to be able to explore other options. I think it's really progressive when we can have sports for kids where they have a bus to come home. It's amazing. People who work and can't pick up their kids can suddenly have their children who are super interested in sports be able to play. One last thing, because I'm the only person from Middlesex here, so if you just give me like 10 more seconds. Yes, we have communities. Yes, we have community schools, but you know where those are? That's where we go and where we make those communities happen. We will still see these people, maybe in a different location that's 8 minutes down the road, but we will still be there. And if we tell our kids it's going to go ahead and we help them and support them, I think we can make it okay. So let's do what's best for the taxpayers, the students first, of course, the taxpayers second, maybe the parent convenience third. I love everything everyone said about socially helping their students to find their peer groups. It's been really hard for all of my kids in Rumney to do that and for other friends of mine as well. So for some students, that's an important issue. I appreciate very much you letting me go over.
Thank you. We're gonna close we have a lot to deliberate. If I can get a sense of how many more people, because we really need to get into, because otherwise we won't have, if you had sent a letter, just please know I'm seeing you. Like if you have sent a letter, if you have had the opportunity to speak to us, please let somebody that hasn't spoke go first. So I have, yeah, right down there.
My name is Marilyn Barton. I've lived in Worcester for 54 years. People say that Worcester is a poor town. We may be monetarily poor, but we are a rich community because we are a community that cares deeply about our school and our community. Thank you.
I'm gonna move online because we had let Lucrecia speak. She was having technical difficulties, she's telling me. Lucrecia, can you go ahead and unmute?
Yes, I'm unmuted now.
Your community and introduce yourself, please.
My name is Lucrecia Bruce Guajardo and I live and work in Calais. I wanted to quickly say that I don't have the history that most everyone else has shared tonight, which I think is lovely. But I do have something that is equally important in this discussion. I moved from very far away, all the way from Texas, because one of the major drivers to that move were the school systems. If you're familiar with the school systems in other places, and I'm pretty sure that some of you on the board are, they don't offer the same things that are offered here in Vermont. The decision to move to Vermont over other places was again driven by the schools. I came and stayed here for a week and watched the children in Vermont interact with their schools. I watched them safely be able to play outside. I watched the way it worked, and it caused us to move to this state. I don't think that things like that are being considered when these closures are being discussed. One of the major problems in Vermont is the inability to attract new people who come to work here, who bring children to be educated here, who purchase these homes that are very expensive comparatively to other places that prohibits people from moving here. And by closing these community schools, you're taking away a major, major attraction to this state. And I think that the people who don't have children who have, you know, a stake in these schools would be very interested to know how much that, you know, that matters to people moving in.
Thank you. I'm going to look at the board. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more community, 6 more community members. I also want the board to make sure to take, to be able to take a break. So we're just going to try to go in order to not make you walk all over, Jet. So to start here and move our way here.
My name is Bob Martin. I live next to the school. I'd like to ask the school board, if you're going to close, which I don't think you should, how much it's going to cost to keep, for us as a taxpayer, to keep the Doty school going. We're going to be paying taxes for school, plus also to try to keep the building up if you close it. I'd like to know what the costs are to maintain it. And also, if the town takes it over, if we sell it within 5 years, how much is it going to cost us, according to the agreement? How much is it going to cost the town to pay for the school, the amount of money that you people have put in repairs? I'd like to know those 2 questions. And I also have a question. I noticed through the financial things of I thought we were a unified district. I believe in the financials, the East Montpelier School District has a $508,000 capital fund. And I just wonder why that is and none of the others have it.
Thank you. We can discuss that as we move over. There.
Hi, I'm Sharon, and I live in East Montpelier, so I think I'm the only representative here potentially. I have a 4th grader, and I want to speak for a moment about my perspective having grown up in a tiny town in Orange County. I went to a school where there were 70 kids, I think, K to 8. Every year we had a new principal. I didn't have any access to music or arts or any of the enrichment activities, and it wasn't a great education. 2 of us went on to college out of a class of 8. So not a great success rate. And I think that school still struggles. That's not what I'm hearing here. I'm not hearing this community say that their children don't have those opportunities. I want to add a couple other things to my thoughts here. I've been participating in the webinars and other community engagement activities that have happened throughout the communities. So you've offered throughout this consolidation process, and I haven't been impressed either with that process. Someone spoke about that earlier. 2 picnic tables at East Montpelier were filled with mostly staff members and a couple of parents at one of those. That was, I think, last spring. I took part in a couple of other events, and there was nothing like this turnout. There was myself and 2 other parents at East Montpelier, and a lot of parents who had their children go to East Montpelier.
Thank you for your, but I just want to respect the others that had abided by the minute and a half, because we had quite a
I just
bit of
think we
people.
need to have more time and more creative solutions. There's a lot of really smart people here that we haven't had any chance to talk about other opportunities. And those activities that we didn't lend themselves to creativity.
Thank you. And that was the core beliefs, just to make, Jen, let's move to this side. And yeah, so we have Shani, and you had the chance to speak before and has plenty of, so we're gonna let other people go and you can go at the end. No, I know Rachel has come to other meetings, so I'm just gonna let other people and I'm gonna come back to you. Go ahead. Either of you, all of you 3 have not spoken.
Hi, thank you. My name is Kathleen. I live in Worcester. I
have a lot to say, but I just want to say the current experiment that you've shown us, that you've got pre-K at Rumney and you've got kindergarten at Doty for both of those communities, has impacted our very youngest kids in Worcester and Middlesex. Some of our children went to Doty for 1 year of pre-K, Rumney for a second year of pre-K, and now they don't know where they're going to go for kindergarten. It's hard to believe that the needs of our children were at the center of your experiment. So worse than the Band-Aids that we've heard tonight, I think that there needs to be a lot of thought and creative solutions as far as how merged schools are going to be. And I just don't think that what you've currently done gives me any faith right now in what you're proposing.
Thank you.
Hi, John Brabant. I'm a Calais resident. I served for 18 years on the Calais Select Board, and that was the select board that took the state to court regarding the forced consolidations. We lost by a 3-2 decision. Just FYI, that was a political one. But it was said earlier by Deb Bogart, and this has been front of mind for me. We had 3 boys go through the system, entering U32 at grade 7, which for one kid was great. The other 2 was a disaster. Whether we sheltered our kids or whatnot, our kids weren't exposed to marijuana until they went to U32. All of them, because I polled them as adults, grade 7, they knew nothing about it. They didn't know what 420 day was till they got educated at U32 in 7th grade. And speaking with my oldest son, he said that by 9th grade, 60% of the kids, his math, were smoking pot. By 10th, 80% were smoking. And he thought that was probably the number that followed through to senior year. Our son, who was very much later diagnosed with autism and struggled so severely at U32, was kicked out, in fact, expelled in 7th grade for possession of marijuana. Again, he would not have seen it, known about it, or known about 420 had he not gone to U32. What Deb said is right. Your kids go there in 6th grade, they're going to be exposed to all the behaviors of seniors and juniors, and they're going to want to be like the older kids. I remember, we all do.
Thank you, John. Can you please
So I'd
keep
ask
them in
that
mind?
you slow it down, that this drumbeat has been going on since I was on the select board and floor. You were the leader of the band. You continue to be. So I just want to ask that the board, please slow this down, get all the data, think more broadly. It's not just about money or per pupils per classroom. There's a lot of other impacts to shoving kids, as
Okay,
Stephen
John.
said,
Can you
in
pass the
6th
mic
grade
to
into a
Rachel?
high school.
To
Thank
Jen.
you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chani Waterhouse from Worcester. Thanks for letting me speak. The only way to save money in a school system is by reducing per pupil spending or slowing down the increase. For many years before the districts merged in 2019, Doty had the lowest per pupil spending in the district, despite being the smallest school. Doty also had the most stable student enrollment, and this trend is expected to continue. Conventional wisdom says small schools cost more. Some of our administrators and board members suggest we can't afford them. However, our own data shows that in the past, our larger elementary schools spent more per pupil. Since the merger, we haven't had access to data, spending data by school, and the administration, I think, did a lot of work to make that available to us, and we appreciate it. And there was a draft of per pupil spending by school data shared on September 19th that we want to speak a little bit more about. I'm going to pass the mic to Michelle.
Thanks. I'm Michelle Hill, former Doty board member from a while ago. We've done our own informal counts to project what Doty's enrollment will be in 25, 26. And we think draft 2 shows an unrealistically low projected enrollment. But for now, we'll go with the projection, which shows Doty's projected per pupil spending at $31,789. Both drafts also show the expected costs per pupil in a 3-school model. Amazing to me is that in this 3-school model, East Montpelier and Berlin would have essentially the same per pupil spending as Doty would have in the 5-school model. The data presented to the board suggests cost savings, which sounds logical. However, research from around the country shows that spending often goes up when schools close, and economics of scales rarely happen. According to the board's configuration matrix, long-term financial sustainability of the 3-school model has not been analyzed. The projected savings cover only 1 year, and we don't really know how those projections were created. Wouldn't it be smart to gather the best possible information about per pupil spending at each school, both current and projected, and provide that to voters before we make big decisions affecting our communities for years to come? And wouldn't it be great to know what to expect over the next 5 years, not just one? I encourage the board to bring in an independent reviewer to assess how the administration is allocating expenses and making projections. That way we can be confident we have the most reliable data.
Thank you. Rachel and then.
My name is Rachel Seelig. I live here in Calais, went to this school, graduated from U32. Floor, you opened this meeting talking about fear and courage. I believe that moving forward with closing schools is an act of fear. Fear of budget failing again, fear our legislature won't act to solve statewide problems, fear of declining enrollment, fear of being behind on unknown state initiatives. The people here tonight from both Calais and Worcester are acting with courage. We elected you and put our trust in all of you to be caretakers of our schools and our students. We trusted you to keep at the forefront the way in which the futures of our towns are inextricably intertwined with our schools, where we shepherd the next generation. This process has not demonstrated that trust was well placed. The plans presented would move Calais students to the school with the highest per pupil spending and no plan for lowering it or explaining what would happen to overall improve that problem. There has not been study of the tax impact, the economic impact, the health impact, or even the impact of what we can expect for educational outcomes. I'm disappointed in this process, and I ask that you vote no tonight on closing our schools. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dell Waterhouse. I live in Worcester, and I taught at Doty for 26 years, retired in 2011, but I can still volunteer there. Throughout this process, our communities have suggested different ways to reorganize schools and keep them open. One idea is to look at each school, the elementary schools and U32, to see if there might be ways to reconfigure internally to accomplish some of the board's goals and reduce cost per pupil spending while keeping a school in each town. For example, reviewing class sizes at U32 to find cost-effective options for under-enrolled classes, exploring having teachers and administrators take on multiple roles in the elementary schools. For example, one educator could teach, say, art and library classes, Or a principal could teach a science class, as is happening now at Doty. Or a guidance counselor could teach a foreign language, which also happened at Doty. There also are possible income generating ideas, such as renting out space for full-time childcare for kids aged 0 to 3, which could provide a much needed service in each town. And how about bringing back early childhood services to U32, as happened there in the 1980s, allowing interactions between those two student populations. Merging with Montpelier is another possibility, which could bring its own benefits and challenges, but could be more financially sustainable for both districts over time.
Thank you, Del.
Okay.
Thank you. And we have the gentleman next to.
Hello, my name is Tom Frazier. I'm not in your district. I'm from Roxbury. I was asked to come here tonight to share Roxbury's story because we're the newest closed school in the area. Montpelier closed our school, our village grade school, by a vote of 5 members on the Montpelier School Board. We didn't have the opportunity to vote on the closure. Calais and Worcester both have that opportunity. And I suggest that you take that opportunity and vote to keep your schools open, because everything you've talked about here tonight is true on steroids. The effect of young people moving into the town, we have people that moved to our town because of our small school, and now they're stuck. You know, they can't, they have to send their kids to Montpelier. 6-year-olds, you know, waiting out in the 20 degree below zero for a bus. I mean, there's just all these horror stories that happen and come out of the woodwork when you lose your local school. And, you know, the friendships of students and parents that are formed around the grade school last forever. And you know, we're like Worcester. Our school is right in the center of our town, and it's now empty. So, and the cost of, we're going to have to pay at least $60,000 a year to maintain the building until we can find another use for it. So all the things that you've said here tonight are absolutely true.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have two people online, and then we'll close it, except I don't want to pass you, Mr. Moderator. Do you want to speak? Or because you were online, so I just want to make sure that I don't pass you, and then we're going to do the 2 people online, and then we're done. Okay.
Including Alan Gilbert, Cole Bliss, and my daughter, that I think I'll pass.
Okay, great. Thank you. Russ, I should wear my glasses. Go ahead, please unmute yourself.
Hi, sorry, I'm putting the kids to bed right now. My name is Ross Lee Blappin, and I'm the father of a preschooler and a kindergartner. We live in Middlesex, and our kindergartner had to do 3 different schools in the last 3 years based on all the changes that are happening. And as the board knows, I've reached out during the initial changes to our pre-K, which was changing to 2.5 hours a day, and there was no parent impact or feedback on that. And when I preached the board, there's basically, the statement was that we don't have time to talk about that. So I appreciate the time tonight, and I thank you all for listening to the communities to hear them at this time. So I appreciate that. And the other ask I'd like to say is that, you know, it's been hard, right? We've had 3 schools. My kindergarten asked, where is he going to go next year for 1st grade? And I tell him, I think this is, you know, finally we can go back to Rumney, but I'm not sure. We moved to Rumney, you know, why we moved to Middlesex was because we heard how good these towns are for schools, and we were psyched about it, and we just haven't been able to realize that. So I think all the comments I made tonight about the value and how great all these schools are true for all 5 of these towns. And what I ask for you is, before you make any decisions, please respond to everyone or all the comments that have been made on all the sides. As has been heard, no one's gonna agree. No matter what decision is made, there's gonna be people that aren't gonna be happy about it. I happen to be in the majority of the room right here that thinks we should keep them all open, but there's obviously people on the other sides. Just please respond to everyone before a decision's made.
Thank you. I have an iPhone.
Yes, hi, my name's Fred Jones. I'm in Worcester. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. I was here.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Fred Jones. I'm in Worcester. My children are in their 30s now, so they've all been through the Doty School and very grateful for the education that they got. I just have two quick comments. One is, where we sit depends on how we see things. And I've sat in a couple of these seats. I've been a school board member. I've been a teacher in a small town. And, I want to ask the board, if I was currently on a board, I would ask myself, do I have enough information? And based on what I've been seeing is, from my perspective now, where I'm sitting now, is there's not enough information to make a decision like this. And the second thing I would say is, have you really been creative about combining all the great ideas that you've heard tonight? And so if you can't answer both those questions, I think it's not time to make a big, important decision like this. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, the public comments conclude for this part of the meeting. There will be time for public comments at the end of the meeting. We're gonna take at least an 8-minute break so people can go to the bathroom and have a chance to recharge before we sit again. So it's 8:21. Let's back here at 8:30. So we're gonna move into our board operations part of the agenda. Can everybody hear me okay, board members? Yeah, okay. So what I'm gonna do is just start this by putting a motion on the table, and I'm just gonna explain what will happen. So we would have a motion of the table. What we're doing here today is deciding if we're gonna put this on the ballot for the Worcester and the Doty community to vote themselves, because we don't get to finalize that. We today get to decide if we're gonna put this out to vote, right? So with that in mind, I need a motion on the table. And what we're gonna do, so hold on a minute. What we're gonna do is divide it in two parts, the motion. So we vote, because the ballots will be separately too. So first we're gonna vote if we as a board wanna put the motion on the table. I'm looking at Steven now. We do it in two parts, or we start?
So two parts.
Yeah. Okay. So first we're gonna vote as a board to put it on the ballot, and then we're gonna move into voting separately for each town. So could I have a motion from the board? We're gonna start with, I'm gonna let Ursula, I just send you what the lawyer gave us. So we're gonna divide it in two. So go ahead.
Point of order, Floor.
Yeah.
Are we on 4.1 right now?
We're on 4.1.
I would suggest that we change the language to say, shall the board vote to close Doty Memorial School and Callis Elementary?
Yes, and that's what we're gonna do.
But the language here says close Worcester Memorial. The name of the school is incorrect.
Okay. So I believe we have it correct from our legal counsel. So just hold on for a minute. So go ahead, Ursula. This just was sent to us. So go ahead.
I move to close the Callis Elementary School and cease using the Callis Elementary School facility for the purpose of providing direct instructions to students effective June 30th, 2025.
Thank you, Ursula. And that needs a second in order for us to have discussion.
Second.
Thank you, Zach. So moved by Ursula, second by Zach. Let's talk about it.
Can I have a clarification on
Yeah.
the question on the vote? I'm sorry, is it?
Can you put it close to your mouth so that people can hear?
It echoes a little bit.
Yeah. Look, do it like a performer.
So the
you know.
actual motion was it to send to the towns to vote, or was it that we are saying?
It's two parts. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the attorney advised us to do it as each individual town because you're sending a separate ballot to each town. So the motion that was on the table is to close Callis Elementary School and cease operations as of the end of the school year.
Yeah.
You're voting on, the motion is to send that to the voters.
Yes.
And then if you, just so that we're clear, if we then, as a board, if you vote to do that, so send it to the voters, you will then need to vote on the language that is going to be on the ballot. All right.
Yes, and that is also in two parts, and I can read those for you guys to make it clear. So the first motion is to close the Callis Elementary School and cease using the Callis Elementary School facility for the purpose of providing direct instruction effective June 30th, 2025. Hold on a minute. That's the first motion. That's what we just read and have on the table. And this is just for clarity. Then we would move, if the Washington District Board approves in the affirmative the above motion, right? We will move into to submit by Australian ballot the issue of closure of the Callis Elementary School to the voters of the town of Callis as required by the Washington Central Unified Union School District Articles of Agreement. Said question to be warned in the following form. Shall the Washington Central Unified Union School District close the Callis Elementary School and cease using the Callis Elementary School facility for the purpose of providing direct instruction to students effective June 30th, 2025? Yes, no, that's what will that be the language on the ballot. Okay, so right now we are voting on the first part. We need majority, which would be 8 people. We have 13 people, if I'm not wrong, today. Keely is not with us. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
13, 14,
14.
2 people online.
14 people, so 8 will be majority. So the motion is on the table, discussion on the motion on the table.
Right.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, just a question. The motion on the table is an affirmative motion to close, even though that we can't do that. So I'm could propose that we change the language to submit a petition or to move to vote to put a ballot to the Callis community rather than saying voting to close, because that's not our, we can't do that.
Yep.
The town can, but we can. So to have the motion that affirmative, I think is just, it's confusing.
Okay.
And the headline would be board votes to close Callis School, which would be wrong because if that was the vote. So I think to clarify the language so that the real action is to decide whether or not we're going to forward a petition for the town of Callis to vote on whether or not to close the school.
Okay,
It's a slight nuance, but it's not affirmative. What?
Chris, I believe what's going on is that the Articles of Agreement require both that the board vote to approve the closure of the school and that the town vote to.
Correct.
And so we need to do one and then the other. And so the board vote will not, if the board voted affirmatively to approve the closure, that would not close the school, but that would be step 1 in that process.
Got it.
And then
Thank you.
step 2 would be to send it to the voters.
And that's basically because that's how we wrote the Articles of Agreement.
Okay, thank you.
And I had 3 lawyers review it, just so that, So both Scott Cameron and Bernie has reviewed it. Okay.
Can you read the motion one more time?
So, yeah, go ahead.
So, all right. So the motion on the table is to close the Callis Elementary School and cease using the Callis Elementary School facility for the purpose of providing direct instruction to students effective June 30th, 2025. That would be the end of this school year, fiscal school year.
And in order to put it to the voters, we would need to, as we just explained, do this first step in order to move to the following motions. Okay, go ahead.
So I guess I'm confused as to how that's where we go immediately. We haven't even agreed that we like that configuration. So I guess I'm confused as to why we haven't even agreed on a configuration. So it's surprising to me that we had a lot of reflection back on it. We had a presentation on the information of what these configurations would be. But then that's not what we as a board are discussing right now. We're going right to saying kind of making an assumption that we agree with this configuration and that that's where we're going. So I'm confused how we jumped to that because that's that.
So what I would say is that the board, we let the board ask questions of the presentation. And now the question, we as a board put our own timeline, right? This is our own timeline. This was our soft destination. We've moved it from the 18th originally to making the decision today because it's the last, if we don't make the decision today, we can't put it on the ballot. So hold on one second. So the decision they're making right now, it doesn't mean that you can't ask questions, right? That's why the motion is on the table for us to discuss and then be able to vote. Chris?
I was going to say the same thing. We have the discussion now.
Well,
Now that the
that's what
question's
we're
on the
doing
table.
right now.
And
but it's not a question about that motion. It's a question about the fact that we did not agree on this configuration yet. And so I'm not sure, the presentation was about these different configurations and we had budget information about some different configurations, but we as a board have not decided yet which one we wanted. So therefore, how can I make any decision I can, but I'm, so
you would take that into consideration, right? When you make the decision. Go
I'm
ahead.
wondering if your question is, how did this get on the agenda?
No,
That's the
it's
steering
not.
committee.
I just think we need a step first where what is the configuration that the board is voting for? Are we voting for 3 elementary schools and the middle and junior high? Then to me, if we agree that that's what we're doing, then the next question even becomes, how did we settle on these 2? And do we need to have this question for all 5? So, I'm not trying to, I'm just saying, I think there are.
Yeah, and I think what I thought we could do with this process is just we would go board member by board member and you say where you are in this process and then decide if you can vote or not. We had all agreed that today is the last day that we can put this on the ballot. This is the information that we have so far. This is when we had agreed that we would do our vote. Natasha?
So not to belabor a point, but I'm going to belabor a point. When we talked about this timeline, it was about voting on an option. And as Diane said, we have not decided what that option is. There's been an assumption that the option is going to be 3 elementary schools, but that was never decided by the board that was the option that we were definitely going to bring forward. That was one of the reasons why I pushed for the timeline to be pushed back and have said over and over, we haven't had enough time to think about other options besides the 3 elementary school option. But now we're being told we're not voting on an option. We're voting on whether we're closing a school or not. And that's a different,
but I don't think
that's a different statement than what was made at the beginning when we were talking about the timeline and what we were going to be doing at this meeting.
I'll look for others to how to proceed because, we need to, we had all agreed that we were going to make a decision today. If we're not ready, we don't have enough information to make that decision. Yeah.
Laura, could I make a
Yes,
suggestion?
go ahead.
I think the way to proceed, and a lot of people won't be satisfied with this, is to withdraw that motion and put a motion on the table to adopt a singular configuration.
Okay.
As the proposal, as the designated proposal,
okay.
And then to proceed to the previously suggested motion.
Okay.
If that's going to facilitate the board's ability to have this conversation, I guess we can do that. But we've been talking about having this discussion for about a year now. We've spent a lot of time as a configuration committee working on the timeline that we've been following, extending the timeline to allow more conversations and to allow more people's viewpoints to come in. This is the day. We were originally supposed to have this conversation on the 18th. This is a motion that allows us to have a conversation about the information we've been given. over many meetings and to be able to have a conversation.
Patrick?
Thank you. I want to point out that some of the public comments have said this tonight and have said this on other meetings, that this is a stressful thing for our kids in our community. This conversation about whether or not our school is going to close. I don't think that today is a magical date where we must vote on closing a school or not closing a school. We set this timeline because it's the last possible day that we could vote to close a school, and then that would get on the ballot. But we don't need to do that in order to fulfill the discussions that we had previously. What we do need to do though is have closure for this conversation. And so I would just simply advocate, just point out that we've had a lot of time for getting information from the community. And from my view, what is clear is that our community cares deeply about education, about public education, and about our kids, and about good outcomes at our schools. And I think if we reflect on that and we reflect on our core values, two core values stick out to me in this conversation. And they are the core values of rigorous instruction and the value of a sense of belonging and equity. And I don't think those two things are in conflict at all. I think that good instruction and competent instruction and outcomes depends on kids feeling a sense of belonging at their schools. And we've heard over and over again at meetings that the kids in our communities feel that sense of belonging in their neighborhood schools. And so I think that I will recommend that the board, whether the wording is a configuration change or to close a school, that we do not close any schools. We do not suggest that any towns close any schools. We do not change our configuration from 5 elementary schools to 3 elementary schools.
Thank you, Patrick. So I think what we can do to allow that conversation is to withdraw the motion and bring closure into the conversation that we were having today about the 3 schools, and allow each board member to explain to see where they are with the feedback that we are, and then we'll move into the motions.
I will respectfully remove my motion then.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So with that, would you like to put a motion on the table on discussion, or we just wanted to put a model like you were suggesting?
So I guess I move that Washington Central Unified Union School District formally adopt the specific configuration proposal of the closure of Callis Elementary School, the closure of Doty Memorial School, and the moving of 6th grades to U32 junior high school.
I'll second.
Thank you. Daniel and Zach. Okay. So now discussion, and we can start at that end of the table and move to here, and then we'll call for a vote when people have had a chance to. And you don't have to, you can pass if you don't feel like speaking to it, but please go ahead. Let's just go in order. It might be easier to just make sure that everybody has a chance to voice their.
You're just looking for my view about this motion?
If you have any discussion, any questions, you don't need to express anything.
I don't have any questions. I think that the configuration proposal as you presented it is what members of the leadership team have recommended. And it's one I oppose, but that's not part of what I need to say right now, right?
Thank you. It's
Okay.
okay. Yeah, you can say.
I do. I am strongly against this configuration.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Thanks. Michaela?
I respectfully removed I withdrew it.
Yes, she withdrew that motion and the second did too.
I was on the reconfiguration committee, and part of my frustration with this process is that
The only options we were given were basically this option that's now on the table. So I have real concerns about this option, in particular about equity, as many people spoke to, closing Doty in particular. I'm also concerned about capacity issues at Rumney in this scenario. And I am very frustrated that the only numbers I received about specific tax estimates per $100,000 home were provided by the community group in Worcester, and not by our own financial people who I was told could give me numbers, but they felt it was irresponsible. So I will not support this motion.
I'll keep it short and sweet tonight since I've been talking a lot. I'm not in support of this either. I don't think that we've been presented with enough data to support that this is what is indeed what's best for our students or our community. I've been asking for a long time for us to look at other possible configuration models that could potentially be better for our district. And it wasn't until recently that those have even been considered. And so I've been very frustrated with this process from the beginning. But for me, the bottom line is I don't believe that we have been presented with enough accurate data for us to make a decision that this option is the right option for our students.
Thank you, Natasha. Chris?
Thank you. I have a question. First is that if a town voted to keep their school open, if it got that far, has there been any discussion that the type of configuration that is currently being proposed would be implemented anyway and just maintain one class at the school, which is an option under the Articles of Agreement, but because we've been saying that we will honor a town's vote. And I'm wondering if there's been any discussion about, doing that anyway, but maintaining one class at a school so it's not technically closed.
I'm not aware.
So I would say from the leadership team's perspective, no. We have discussed that it's a possibility, but we have not discussed on whether or not it would be anything that we would recommend.
Okay.
And any configuration that did not involve closing a school would be brought to the board through the budget process.
Exactly.
And the board would be able to decide through there. But we have not had any formal conversations about any of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the board will abide by the Articles of Agreement, right?
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. This process has been long and difficult, and I do not, and there's a dichotomy here because we're trying to do best for kids, but also kids come from a community, and there's a symbiotic relationship that cannot really be pulled apart, in my view, because even if we close the school, the student is still a member of that community. And I do think the closing the school is has a very detrimental impact on a community. We have the evidence here from all our community members coming out and supporting their school and talking about, and I think that matters for students, and it matters for the environment that students live in, and not just that they go to school in. I also appreciated Allison and Mary Alice's comments about the hard work that we will be faced with in these budget discussions and trying to do something different potentially, and that the community is up for it, because that's a two-way street. It's like, we had a failed budget last year, and that is a concern because the entire district votes on the budget, not just the two towns. And so that will mean, if it fails again, that means cutting things. And we have to be willing to face that as a community and a district, that is potentially what can happen. But that being said, I don't think the current proposed configuration is in the best interest of our district as a whole. And I don't think it's in the best interest of, I know we're only talking about Calais now, but Calais or Doty, either for the students or for their town. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Michelle.
So,
can you get the mic a little closer? Sorry for them.
Yeah. So this has been really hard. And, you know, we've received lots of emails from lots of different people as well than just the people who are here. And we've received from them as well. But, and everybody's kids have a different experience when they go through any of our schools. They're never the same. So I love Calais. I love all the schools in our district because, you know, I have connections to all. But I also worry about, because we've also heard from other residents in other towns about potentially starting a petition to overturn our articles of agreement. And then that could potentially take away the town's rights to vote if it passed, because the school, all the towns would have to vote on that. So I would rather give the towns a chance to vote and show the rest of the district that you don't want our schools to, you don't want the schools to close, versus having the other towns give their power, try to take that power away from you.
Thank you, Michelle. Amelia.
I'm in strong support of this proposed reconfiguration model. Amelia Contrada. And I'm going to read a statement that I wrote to share about why.
Can you speak out of it, please?
Yep, I'll lean into the mic. The message from some, I'm from East Montpelier. The message from some Worcester and Calais community members to slow down the process was indeed heard. Speaking for myself and not the board, I would also like the process to be slowed down. Ideally, I would. To have the chance for us to consider carefully over the span of months or perhaps years, all of the pros and cons of each reconfiguration idea shared. However, I cannot ignore the painful reality that comes from the clear message of our state legislators. More challenges for education funding are coming, and they're coming fast. The challenges of public education funding are not unrelated to the meta crisis, poly crisis, the cost of living, political instability, inequity, social justice, economic recession, and the climate crisis. Last year's school board budget process was a warning call for the coming tsunami. Legislators have named the specific challenges and limitations that resulted in last year's statewide failed budgets. We now know all too well current and future challenges to public education funding, including inflation, healthcare costs, and state education funding structures. We are charged as school board members with the responsibility to make sound decisions based on how we vote to prioritize a financially viable and sustainable school district now. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. We clearly have many differing perspectives and ideas. Let's focus on the uniting concept that this process and work is a labor of love for us all. Let's stay in loving kindness and consider not if changes need to happen, but how changes need to happen. It's our responsibility, not just as school board members, but as a larger district community, to vote and choose a reconfiguration option that will decrease budget spending, responsibility, and sustainability as much as is within our limited scope of influence. The research presented by the Worcester community is valid and concerning. It highlights urban school populations outside of Vermont that have experienced classism. However, it does not translate to the proposed 3 elementary school reconfiguration option. Correlation does not equal causation. There's no research that indicates that barriers to academic success and challenges to well-being would result from merging low-income, small population schools to higher socioeconomic status communities with larger population schools in rural Vermont. With the consolidation reconfiguration option of 3 elementary schools, we will likely be working closer within the range of a 3 to 4% increase on the budget that still realistically will require some reductions to get to that sustainable percentage mark. If we do not make changes prior to creating this year's budget, we will likely be asking all community members in the district, including Worcester and Calais, to stretch too far financially, including most households that historically loved supporting public education. We will be forced to face the negative consequences that will precipitate for the district if we do nothing. Specifically, we will likely be forced to cut an estimated 7% or $2 million from our current budget in order to avoid risking another failed budget, which is significant when exponentially cost increases. This is not to scapegoat the Worcester or Calais communities for their positions, because we as school board members will be the ones responsible to take the fall for any decisions that negatively impact our communities and our students. The 3 elementary school reconfiguration solution means sustaining the programs that we provide, expanding programs when possible, and lowering education spending for everyone in the district. This translates to monetary reallocation of building maintenance and staffing funds to increase capacity to sustain higher FTE positions for district instruction for all of our students in counseling, nursing, art, and music programs. As board members, we have a responsibility to consider how our votes matter. I'm compelled to vote to make what I believe is the most responsible decision for our students, for now and for the future. I believe if we keep perspective on safeguarding the resources that we still have and work together, we can and will meet the high standards that we hold in order to provide the best education for our students, guided by our mission, vision, strategic plan, and core beliefs. I trust our school board chair, our superintendent, our legislators, every board member here. I also trust all of our communities to continue to stay engaged in the process of figuring out how to make changes in ways that best meet our student needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. Jonathan, you're not in the room, but you're in the room. Are you able to speak? I don't know if she's still with us. Okay, I'm gonna move to Elizabeth.
I did not prepare a statement. I just wanted to share that I came onto the school board with the intent of ensuring that this process was intentional. And as somebody who has worked in education for many, many years, I am acutely aware of how decisions we make impact a multitude of factors. That does not fall lightly on my shoulders tonight. I love Calais. It is magical, as my child told me. I also realize we are in unprecedented times in regards to budgets, finances, and hardships on families. At this moment, I do not feel like I could support the configuration as it has been written, because I feel like there is more work to be done. And I know that's hard for administration and the board to hear. I say that because when I look at all the information that I have, I still have a lot of questions. I also decided to be on the board because I promised myself and those that didn't vote me on but have put their faith in me, I have promised that I would listen and really hear what they were saying. I want us as a board to be able to walk away from this decision-making process knowing 2 things. The first is that we made the best decision for our entire community. That includes the kids who are on the spectrum. It includes the kids who need more kids in their classrooms. We have to really do work. And I know we've done a lot of work. And I know we've all lost sleep. Every single person on this board, every person sitting here, all of you have lost sleep. So I want to make sure that my decision is intentional, and that this time I struggle to state that my decision could be intentional. So I like many others, am excited to be able to put in work that may provide an option that minimizes the negative impact and maximizes the positive impact for our children and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Diane?
So I won't repeat what many have repeated. I am not in support of the configuration. I will repeat that statement. But one of the things I notice is our core beliefs are what we bring forward. And we've said that we're going to have this conversation using our core beliefs. But I also recognize that it's our perspective and our context that helps us to understand and apply these. So how I may apply these is going to look very different than the person next to me. However, I do believe that each one of us have this at the root of why we're making these decisions. The reasons that I am not that I'm not supporting this configuration is we had said that we would look at the financials. We have the financials, but I don't understand the financials. I don't understand there wasn't a narrative or an opportunity to dig into the details around it that would have helped me understand what the other impacts are. We had talked about expanded opportunities. I have not seen that really intentionally laid out and as to our conversation. I was also on the configuration committee, and to be honest, I don't know how we came to these two schools either. And collectively, there is huge amounts of ideas and creative thinking that we've heard coming forward. And I feel that that's where we need to go back to and to figure out. I don't think any of us are saying that there don't need to be changes. It's just right now, I don't have all of the information that I collectively need in order to make this decision. I feel that, what I wonder is this one of the things we did lose in our merger, is that each individual school and community being able to brainstorm around how do we solve these problems, and then coming collectively, it has gotten a little bit lost in this. But also to that point, we know that we need help, this type of help, to empower our communities to understand financially what is there and how do we tighten our belts, and how do we help our community to know too the income sensitivity that can protect our families as well. So that's what I said.
Thank you, Diane. And Daniel?
I also didn't prepare a statement. I walked into this process in favor of the configuration as I proposed moments ago. I guess more than a year ago. I'll walk out of this room in support of that configuration as I proposed moments ago. I intuitively feel that it's going to be the best approach. I'm going to vote for my motion here. I posted to Front Porch Forum asking Calais voters to wait and see what the articulated benefits of this configuration were, and weigh those against the costs. And you all aren't the only people frustrated with this process. I want you to be really clear about that. And I continue to be disappointed with the lack of articulation of benefits. I can imagine them in my mind's eye, and I'm excited for that to be our future. I think a wonderful thought experiment, which may remain a thought experiment for a little while longer, is to imagine 3 new school communities coming out of this process. I think the 5 towns in this district make our schools carry a whole lot of water when it comes to community identity. And I feel like those communities, those towns, they need to do a lot of work for themselves to identify what their town priorities are. And I agree with you, Chris, that it's inextricably linked to students. But I think if our lens is students, which I think it should be up here, I think the three school configuration, which isn't East Montpelier, Berlin, and Rumney. To me, it's 3 new schools with 3 new names. I think it's the best approach, and I want to see it move forward eventually. But again, it's a frustrating process. I don't think it's appropriate to ask the voters right now to vote on that configuration because I don't think those benefits have been articulated. I don't think time is the issue. I don't want to wait another year. Another year is not going to make a difference. I think some people very disingenuously out there say they want more time. They just don't want a reconfiguration, which is fair. I think, though, the process is the problem. The process needs a real shakeup. I think we need to re-examine how we're approaching this. It's not going well. And that's all I can think of saying.
Thank you, Daniel. Patrick? And then Patrick, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, thank you. I had to get to the mute. Thank you, Flora. I want to add to what I said before, that the discussion of just about equity and the concept of equity is about meeting kids where they are and lifting them up. It's about celebrating the things that might be different from one building to the other, to the next building, and identifying barriers and helping the kids in our community break those barriers down. It's not some hypothetical homogenous model. And so I want to make sure that that's part of the conversation too, the true concept of equity. About the timeline, I agree that we haven't seen the benefits articulated fully. And it's tempting to say, let's spend the next few months or the next year or something on really fleshing out the benefits and postpone this conversation. But the problem with that, in my view, is that we're having trouble hiring people for the positions that we have. And part of that, I wonder, is because the people are looking over their shoulder wondering if their school is going to be there next year. Why would they move their family to a new neighborhood if there's rumors that the district wants to close that school? So I don't think that the solution is more time. I think we need to keep the configuration that we have and not focus on closing a school or whatever, but we need to think critically about the configuration of our district and the things that our district does and what happens in each building, and celebrate the things that make each building different, and celebrate the things that lift up each kid, and work within the system that we have. There's plenty of knobs that we can turn, and there's plenty of ways to get education outcomes and to get an effective environment for everybody in our district. And I think that needs to be our goal. And so I'm going to vote not to change our configuration to this 3 elementary school model.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm just going to check with Jonathan. Do you want to try one more time to see if you can unmute? He's working from his phone on Zoom.
I think
you figured it out.
Did I reach you finally?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you now, Jonathan.
Well, to be perfectly frank, this is the first time I've used Zoom on my iPhone, so it took me a little while, but I think I finally made it. So I've listened very carefully to what everybody has said, and I think that there certainly are arguments to be made for moving more quickly. The problem is if you get in a hurry, almost I found in life, oftentimes doing things too quickly can lead to really worse outcomes. So, my view really is that this current configuration proposal that we have before us, or even the idea of closing one school right now is premature. There's just so many things that we still don't know. And one of the things that I've mentioned a time or two is, what is the legislature going to do? Because no matter what we do, if the legislature changes things in a significant way, which hopefully that'll include more funding for public education, because Vermont has been sorely behind that 8 ball for decades in terms of underfunding public education. So I would be very much against closing any schools right now. So thank you very much. And it's nice to see as many of you as I can see.
So I'm in support of this recommendation, this motion, and this configuration. Within our district, we know that school connectedness is important to our students' well-being and success. We're talking about students' connection to peers and staff. And we have heard from administration that sometimes our students who need the most help, those on IEPs, those with supports from the MLSS, they get pulled out for one-on-one individualized support when they don't need one-on-one. What they need is small group. So they're sitting in an education situation where they aren't with a peer, they're by themselves. Those students do not see themselves in another student in their school. And with more students in an area, they have a more opportunity to find a peer and make connections with their peers. I want all of our students to be able to have peers within their schools, and we have heard from people whose students have not had that opportunity. I know that we talked about equity in before and after care and that we don't currently have it, and we can't necessarily predict what we can do in a new configuration. But I can't imagine, given that Community Connections, if we were to continue that way, Community Connections is already understaffed and we don't have before and after care available in each of our towns, which affects our working parents. Studies also show that highly trained, highly skilled instructors have a large impact on our student success. And we have amazing instructors and staff, but they're spread really thin. We've heard from our administrators that reducing the number of elementary schools in our district would allow special educators to be able to either specialize in an age group or in a specific subject, which will only lead to better outcomes for our students. And I've had to pause a few times. I have heard the emotion brought forward by everybody who comes to our meetings and the people who email us, and this isn't an easy decision or discussion. But our students need us to be brave and make a choice and think about change that can support them. I also feel that we as a board have a responsibility to ensure that this decision can go out to our voters so that we can hear through a vote from all of our voters and all of the people in the towns that could be impacted by this. That is democracy.
Thank you.
When I started working on being part of the configuration committee about a year ago now, the thing that was most surprising to me coming out of the strategic planning process was how much people were thinking about this, not just in terms of cost, but in terms of what there were, the real benefits that there were. And I want to share some things that I've learned from that, from being on the quality committee and from my own kids, frankly. We have staffs just spread really thin across a lot of buildings. Last year, we made a tough decision to say we need to cut back the FTE levels for our allied arts teachers. And we got warnings that we were going to lose people. And those weren't, it wasn't clear if it was a threat or a warning. It was a warning. Those are real. We lost good people because of that. I think it's going to be hard to keep attracting. We have really good people. We have really experienced people. I wouldn't want to be the lowest person, the person with the least experience, coming into a contract in a district that doesn't seem stable. I think, there are things you can do with class configuration to make it more intentional. Right now, I think these are the sorts of things that are interesting to principals and really boring to everybody else, but that make a really big difference. When we have, 1 year you've got single grade classes, then another year you have to have multi-grade classes, then you go back again. You can't be intentional about things like, how are we teaching science? How are we teaching social studies? We're doing reading and math by separating kids out, so it's really single grade classes within those multi-grade classrooms. But it would be, we can't just be reading and math. We need to really be able to teach these other things as well. You've got kids in small, if you've got kids in a really small class, if there are kids who really conflict, or alternatively kids who just really get along great and are chattering away and distracting the entire rest of the class, in a bigger school, you have the ability to intentionally shape that class, to figure out, is this a couple of kids that I want to have really work on working this out, or is it better for the entire class to not be distracted by this, to improve everyone's learning? We've heard from people about cases where there's been one boy in a class or one girl in a class, and that is really, really hard for those kids. And so I think there are those are real benefits, to people. I was a band nerd, growing up. We went to the band concert at EMES. It was sort of at the celebration of learning at the end of the year, and I will give it a better review than some people have given elementary school bands. But the thing that struck me as a band kid was there were 30 kids in that band. There's a richness to that experience that as having been in a band of 10 kids in elementary school, it just isn't there. A couple of other things I want to speak to. I think we need to be honest with ourselves about the alternatives. I think that and I don't know if this is really what people are thinking of, but I feel an undercurrent of it, we're choosing between keeping the 5 elementary schools as they are or not. And I don't think that's true. I don't think that keeping things like they are is a choice on the table. I think it's a question of, do we keep 5 elementary schools that we're forced to start hollowing out, or do we move to something that's better and more sustainable? And lastly, I want to speak to the piece about the merger with Montpelier, because I think that is a great idea. I think we absolutely need to be prioritizing merging with Montpelier. I think there's financially, there are a lot of benefits. It could stabilize our AP classes. It could, we could have richer arts. There's a lot of stuff there. We also just watched the Montpelier voters say, we're not approving of a budget that includes the Roxbury Village School. If I was a board member in Montpelier, I don't think I would vote for a merger with another district that's coming in with a bunch of tiny schools, unless I had the power to shut them down on day one. We just watched Montpelier do that. I don't know why they wouldn't do it again. And I think we come in a much better place saying, we've got 3 elementary schools that are full, that give a rich experience, that still give our kids a small school experience, but to say we really come with something on the table here. So for all those reasons, I support the configuration as proposed.
Thank you, Seth. Okay, so I think we have heard from all the board members, as we have a motion on the table, and call the vote. Are you ready? Is the board ready?
Can we repeat the motion, please?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to ask Lisa actually to repeat it because my.
That the Washington Central Unified School District formally adopt the configuration model of closure of Callis Elementary School and Doty Elementary School and moving the 6th grade to U32. And it was seconded by Zach.
Thank you. Is the board clear? Could you hear? Could you hear the motion?
Yeah.
Since we had some argument about semantics earlier, I just want to be clear. It's, I think, Doty Memorial School.
Doty Memorial School. Thank you. Oh, okay, good.
So Dan Keeney moved that the Washington Central Unified Union School District formally adopt the configuration model of closure of Callis Elementary School and Doty Memorial School and moving sixth grade to U32. And then Zach seconded it.
Okay. Ready for the vote? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. I think it would just be easier because we have some people online that by saying aye. Please, Jonathan and Patrick, could you raise your hand if you're in favor of the motion? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that's what we had. Okay. And all those that oppose the motion as read by Lisa, please signify by raising your hand. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So the noes have it, the motion fails. Thank you. Okay, so now we're gonna move into the quality update.
I'm sorry, Flor.
Yep.
I want to voice,
You wanna voice? Am I understanding correctly from the board that we were just, we were voting on this, and if this doesn't pass, we can't move into the next motion today? Correct, right? So am I missing something? I just want to make sure that there's clarity.
We didn't catch that at all.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, can you?
Yes. So Flor just said, so with that vote, she understood that the board would be moving on the agenda to the next item, is really what that was.
Isn't that correct? That's why.
I think that's right.
We don't have, unless there's another motion on the table, or does the board want to move forward with the other two motions? This was my
I'll
understanding.
wait for board reflection to say something.
Okay, yeah, and sorry, I had put reflection here because originally we're trying to do the meeting shorter, but then we realized that we did need to get some work done too. So there is board reflection at the end. So Julia, is there anything that you would like to share with us? Or am I missing something that you would like to share? Sorry, I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything before we move on to.
I'm wondering if it's possible to move to public comment now so that the public can be free to leave.
I don't think so, because we have very little, so just bear with us, we have very little business, and then we can move into public comment, okay? And then just to respect also our administrators' time too, there's a lot of people in the room, so if you would be so kind, I would move that we finish our agenda, which is very little what we have left to do. So with that, a quick quality update. Go ahead, Ursula.
So the Ed Quality Committee had the privilege of meeting here in Callis tonight for the second meeting where we discussed our student outcomes for math and literacy from the spring of 2023. We have readopted the same goal we had last year, which is to bring the forward four reports, 2 on math and literacy, 1 on post-secondary outcomes, and 1 that combines our student learning outcomes that we are rotating. In the past years, we've been trying to do a 2-year rotation on those SLOs, and that comes to like 3 or 4 SLOs per year, plus our math and literacy and our post-secondary outcomes. It's a lot for that committee to try to do in an hour, and we weren't getting our work done. So we have moved to taking 2 meetings to review each of our math and literacy data sets so that we can have really good discussion on them. You guys will get a full board report on that at our next meeting on the 16th. And we're gonna move to a 3-year rotation on those SLOs because there's 7 of them. So it'll allow us to do 2 or 3 so that we can give them the depth and the attention that they need, especially now that we're looking at equity out, like the equity indicators, and we're tying so many things in. So that's where we are. You'll get a report in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Yes, if you go on to
On the
the
website.
district website for the school board, under meeting resources, we have committee meetings. So committee resources, all of the ed quality committee resources are listed under our education quality meeting dates. And we typically meet the first Wednesday of every month.
Thank you, Ursula. Okay, so let's move into the policy committee because we haven't visited the policy stuff the last time. So go ahead, Chair of the Policy Committee.
So
Could
up
you-
for first read is our educational philosophy policy. And the origin of this was from the Great Schools Partnership. And I'm going to ask Natasha, who took a strong hand in putting this together and working it through with the Humanity and Justice Committee to give us a brief outline of her work.
Thank you. So what we wanted to do with this educational philosophy was create a statement that supports the work that we do across as many different components of our district as possible. So that's what it's made up of. So it opens with the statement from our student learning outcomes. This is the overarching statement that is on every single one of our SLOs. So we wanted to start with that. The next section is the Humanity and Justice Coalition vision statement. And then the next section is based on our core beliefs. And then we cross-reference that with, again, the SLOs, the vision statement, and our strategic plan. The other two things that are in the cross-reference is the IRIS framework, which is in the process of being passed, but it accompanies the new ed quality standards. And then we also wanted to make sure that this philosophy was framed from the standpoint of we are implementing what the ed quality standards are asking. So that's why the statement, it is our intent that this policy will meet or exceed the guidance set forth in Rule Series 2000 educational quality standards. So we feel like this philosophy just kind of ties all of it together, all the work that we've been doing in the different aspects of the district.
What is IRS? IRIS.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can get that information for you. It's really exciting once you see it.
Any other
Any
questions?
comments? Otherwise, we'll bring it back next meeting for adoption. This is the first reading.
I have one question.
Sure.
It says it's required, and usually that's only by the VSBA. Did the VSBA require this, or is it just something that we got from Great School Partnership?
This is what the Great Schools Partnership brought to us.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Yeah, the Great School, but so after we did our review of our policies last year, before we set our work on Duke, one of the consultants looked at this, and this would allow us to nationally, to include a policy that.
Right, because we usually follow like what the VSBA.
Oh, yeah.
says about
Yeah, so we
required.
would,
It's
this one
inspired.
vetted by our
Right.
lawyer.
Not
So-
required.
Right.
No.
That would be my only suggestion.
What? No, next time.
Next
Yeah.
one.
We have, wait,
Oh, I
we
just-
have Daniel.
For everyone's edification, I looked it up. So
Oh, IRIS
it's the
framework.
Ethnic Studies Framework for the state of Vermont.
Yeah.
IRIS stands for Identity Development, Resisting Racism, Interconnectedness, and Social Responsibility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We should spell that
That's a
out.
mouthful.
Okay.
It is a
You know what,
Any
I
other
think
I think we should
questions?
fill it out
I think
for
I
other
agree.
people.
Okay.
Any
Yeah,
other
we'll spell
questions
it
or
out.
feedback for the policy committee?
Yes.
More?
What'd you say?
No, any more questions? I said.
No.
So Yes.
But we will spell that out for that will be a
That way
change.
they're,
Okay,
the
People
general
know what it
public,
means.
yeah, people
Right.
know what it means.
okay.
And we will-
Yes.
So now let's move into personnel. Could I have a motion to, go ahead, thank you, Ursula.
I move that we accept the recommendation for a long-term substitute for the 24-25 school year of John Dube, LTS at U32 Social Studies.
Doobie.
Doobie.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Natasha. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Nothing. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, so consent agenda. I have a motion to approve our minutes of September 18 and September 25th. They were part of your packet. Thank you, Ursula.
I
So
move.
moved.
Okay, so Patrick moves and Ursula seconds. Is
Sure.
that good? Thank you.
Thank you.
And then do we have any edits to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes that's submitted, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. In our future agenda items is a board resolution. Now we can move into board reflection. Daniel, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, if I have to put it in the form of a reflection, I guess I look forward to our next configuration committee meeting to understand sort of where we go from here. We need to go somewhere from here. I'm ambivalent about running new configuration models in the midst of a budget conversation. And I know we have capacity issues as a board and we have capacity issues as an administration. So that strikes me as really challenging. But I guess what I'm prepared to do at this point is to look for external guidance on how best to approach this challenge, because the challenge is not going away. And yeah, it's a frustrating process. And you know, I think there's small pieces, specific pieces that are really important to each of us to get clarity on. And then there's the bigger questions that still remain. For me, I want to know a lot more about after school care, either in a new configuration or our current configuration. I think I appreciate that there might be some feasibility challenges to implementing it. And I know that we are staring down another hard budget conversation, but that feels to me like a really, really important benefit that we as an educational institution, as a district, could offer to families in our district. And I want to pursue it. I don't want to say we can't model it and kick the can down the road and maybe decide we can't model it again 14 months from now or 24 months from now. I want to really examine what it would look like. Maybe it's a shared cost model. Maybe we're subsidizing. Maybe it's a sliding scale so that families can access it according to their ability. I mean, I know that other people have thoughts about things like this adjacent to configuration. So maybe it's germane to configuration, maybe it's germane elsewhere in our agenda, but that's all to say that I don't want us to drop the ball here.
Okay, any other reflections for board members? Go ahead, Ursula.
This isn't easy for me to say, but I'm really disappointed with us as a board. We could have put this out to our communities to vote on, to hear from everybody, and we chose not to. And to me, that is a massive failure in democracy. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm really disappointed with us.
Okay. Thank you, Ursula. Michaela, and then Patrick, I see you.
I have probably lots of thoughts, but two initial thoughts. You know, I agree with Daniel that, you know, that there needs to be some real creativity and kind of coming together around this. I think part of my frustration around the budgeting process is what seems like a relatively small group of people makes these decisions. So we had a whole room full of community members here. I don't know if there's a way to invite community input in a meaningful way. I know that's not the board's role to oversee the budget in minutia, but a lot of people are offering to help think really creatively about the challenges we're facing. So I just would put that out there. Is there a way that we could meaningfully work together? The second reflection I have is like pretty completely unrelated, but the presentation on community schools, I didn't see in the agenda. I thought it was ill-timed. The only reason I didn't say anything at the time was because I think it's a really good topic, and it wasn't the speaker's fault that she walked into this. But I know people have been asking about exploring community schools for over a year now, and so I'm super psyched we brought someone in finally, but I think it was ill-timed. So just wanted to share that.
Patrick?
Thank you. I want to agree with Daniel about the early childhood. I'm completely in agreement that we should look into that. I think it underlines the kind of creativity that we need to have in our conversations moving forward. And then I want to say that I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that this board has had for making this decision today. It was a difficult vote. Somebody meant, I don't remember, I'm sorry to forget who said it, but somebody said we've all lost sleep over this. And that is absolutely true. This has been a very big stressor for all of us involved in this conversation. But I appreciate that the tone from the board has been civil and has been respectful and thoughtful. And so thank you very much. It's an honor to be serving on a board that behaves this way.
Thank you, Patrick. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I echo what Patrick said. I also wanted to just say that for me, going back to what I said before, I think I'm not opposed to something like this going to our voters. I think it needs to. We have to have change, to Daniel's point. And the clock is ticking. I also want to make sure that our constituents have clear data and information so that when they are voting, they are not just voting from emotions. They are voting from data-driven information. And that's really important to me, not just as a board member, but also as a parent and a taxpayer. I want us to, I'm eager to get to work, Daniel, just like you said. And I think there is a lot of good energy, not just from the administration, but from the board, from the community. And I think if we can find creative ways to harness that energy, we will get there much sooner. Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Zach.
I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. I think I want to echo Ursula's comments about just having a feeling of disappointment in how this went. We've been, when I moved to East Montpelier 10 years ago, the first thing I ever went to for a school district event was a discussion about school mergers. We've been talking about this for 10 years. We've been in this process specifically for a year, and before that there was another year of work on the strategic plan. And I don't think it's just us who saw the writing on the wall. I think, like we talked about your creative ideas, I think the creation of Friends of Calais is one of the genuinely creative ideas put out about how do you support this need for community in an environment where the schools may be changing. It's also an indicator that we saw this writing on the wall. And I really worry that we're running out of runway. And that we don't have the luxury of time. And I think we need to grapple with that.
Thank you, Seth. Okay, I don't see any other hands up, so we're going to close the meeting. I just want to say that, I want to take a moment to, oh yeah, we have public comment, but I wanted to take a moment to reflect myself too. So I just want to say that I want to express my appreciation, and I'm sorry, for the community and what we heard from the community. But I'm sorry that some of the comments have become personal. I want to encourage us to, approach these conversations with more kindness. We all have had an opportunity to say how things are run. We all have the opportunity to say what questions are asked. We all have had the opportunity. So all the work, and I know that there's a lot of people here that know me from other sectors or other hats that I work on, but all the work has always been dedicated to ensuring that every student everywhere has access to excellent and equitable public education, where I'm here in Vermont or where I, in Texas, whatever. That's my hope. And and a lot of people don't, there's been a lot of things thrown to me just by walking to the bathroom. People don't know me, do not know anything about me, and I don't need to justify myself tonight either. But I have found my voice in this adopted country, and I certainly won't stop having the courage to speak now. And every single day, I try to, I strive to make a difference and that my actions contribute to the larger, to the whole. So it's an honor and a privilege for me to serve this community. And when I am, like John was saying at the front, it was in service of the community. So not in service of myself. Okay. So with that, we can move.
Well,
wait.
well, we
need the mic. Just one second.
It allows the people online to hear you better, to be fair.
I want to thank Zach for pointing out Friends of Calais, because it was my idea in 2000 during COVID that we start Friends of Calais and transition what was the PTNO in preparation for this meeting tonight. So we were thinking ahead about how to make a decision like this. We were planning ahead. And what I see tonight is incredible servants. You guys are amazing. Nobody in the public knows all the hours that you've put into the work that you've done. It's a thankless job. I grew up with an administrator who was a father. My father was a school administrator. It's a thankless job. I want to thank you sincerely, but I also want to challenge you not to leave this meeting tonight feeling downtrodden, because what you have is a great idea. You have a great product, and unfortunately, your communication systems to the public right now and the way you're pitching and selling the vision for this, it's not landing. So my 2 cents, my humble 2 cents, is instead of leaving this meeting saying, oh, this isn't going to work, take some time and talk to people outside of your group that you're currently hanging with and say, hey, if you have a great product that you're going to sell, how would you sell it? Because you're in that phase of pitching and selling an idea. It can change, it can get tweaked, it can become something different. But right now, the board is going to have to think more entrepreneurially about how to get out in the public and sell what you want to do. And personally, when we shifted things with the select board here, it was a one-on-one conversation on people's porches, sitting and listening to them, and then reflecting back, did I get it right? Did I get it right? Is that what you said? Okay. And then once people feel heard, they're often willing to say, hey, you're the experts. I'll do what you're telling me to do. But that one-on-one work has to happen with the key informants, the key people in the community, until it, and once it happens, they will bring along the rest of the community, if that makes sense. So I'm not stating my support either way. I'm not the expert. I don't know what you know, Flor. I don't know what you know. But I do know that right now, people are not understanding what you're trying to do. Does that make sense? So, that's my honest reflection. Don't leave this meeting being discouraged. Just think on your feet. How do we work together as a team and move quickly? And you need to also think about public relations a lot more, PR, because you're having a public relations nightmare right now when people can walk in off the street who haven't been coming to your meetings and don't know what's going on, and they can derail a process that you've put so much work into. So again, there's people that can come in externally and give you some support here. But I would not be discouraged. You've done a lot of great work.
Noah Weinstein from Worcester. I first just want to express gratitude to all of you, regardless of how you voted tonight. You've all put an incredible amount of work into this, and it's a really hard decision, and there are pros and cons in both directions. And quite honestly, I was coming into this going, I don't know what's best. It's really, really hard. So thank you, everybody. It's been a tremendous amount of work, and we know that, and we thank you. And also please know that we hold, I can speak for myself in this, I hold none of this personally. I think you're all amazing. I don't, I think you all have really valid and important views, and it's been an honor to get to know all of you better in this process. So thank you. Speaking of process, I don't actually want to buy what you're selling. What I want you to, I don't want to buy what you're selling. What I want you to do is come to us. I want you to come to us and say, what is it that you guys want? How do you want your school to be? And what are you willing to let go of in order to make it financially viable? And what are you willing to do? Maybe it's volunteer, maybe it's, we're really creative people, and we've been talking about this a lot. We've got a lot of good ideas. So what I'd actually like to do is invite both the administration and the board to a community forum in Worcester. And we would love to host it, and we'd love to have you join us. And we'd love to envision with you how to make our school, and I think that it should probably happen in every town, that rather than starting the budget process from the top down and saying, well, this is what the experts say, now we're going to try to sell it to you, is to go in the reverse. I'm going to keep talking. I'm sorry. I didn't get to talk earlier. And so, find out from us, what is it that we want from our schools? Find out from us what we're willing to let go of in our schools and what we're willing to do to make our schools incredible. Find out from us, what's a number we're willing to live with? Y'all, is it 2%? Is it 5%? Is it 8%? Is it 12%? You don't know. And find out from us, please. By the way, in any community forum, have food. Please, we can make it a potluck, but more people will come. And childcare, food and childcare to any community forum, please. And we'll help make that happen. In terms of having each school vision for themselves, I'd like the administration to start tracking per pupil cost per school every year. It was really, really helpful to see. And when we have those numbers, we can then look and say, oh, okay, wait, why is this school spending so much more than that school? Are there really valid reasons for it? Which often there may be. There might be other times where this school is spending more than that school because they have more programming that we don't have, or because they're taking their kids to the Tunbridge Fair and we're taking ours to Hubbard Park, right? And because they've got things that we don't have, and sure, they might have a few more numbers, but they're also spending a lot more money than we are. Maybe they also have higher special education. But the question is, are those special education resources being divvied up equally? Because if a school with the higher free and reduced lunch population is receiving lower special education services, then maybe there's a special education question happening here of where, which schools are allocating more special education resources. The next thing I will say, and I'm almost done, is I really support the idea of an independent reviewer to come in and help with this process, and particularly an independent equity review, to look at the entire district and say, does it make sense, even if Worcester started this bus route in 2019 because they chose to have longer bus rides and not cut a teacher, that is no excuse for keeping this going. My kid last year had a 90-minute bus ride one way if I put her on the bus, and a 10-minute bus ride on the way home because they went the same way. This year it's a 90-minute bus ride and an 80-minute bus ride. And we live 1 mile from the school. That's not okay, and it needs to get dealt with now. So again, I just want to thank everybody. It's been a really difficult process, and also a really fascinating and even fun one sometimes. It's been really great to get to know my community better, to get to know all of you better, and we really do want to work with you to make this a better process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't have any more
Real
hands
quick.
online, so we could adjourn.
We have Dell.
Dell.
Real quick, can we get a show of hands of how many people want to comment? I mean, like, are we gonna have the timer?
Oh,
Or
it's okay. Let's just do Dell and we're done. Thank you. Sorry.
just want to make sure.
Somebody else was?
That gentleman right there,
Jen,
behind
right
you,
behind you.
right behind you, the gentleman on with the black jacket.
I'll be real quick. First, thank you. Thank you all for your for volunteering for this. I would say don't be disappointed because that will put your mind in a negative place. You had a lot of good ideas. Embrace that, right? One of the things that I heard was, selling something. Well, from my standpoint, it sounded like the board wasn't sold, right? So it's hard for us to get on board with the message if the board's not sold. The concerning part is to hear that there's a lack of information being shared amongst you guys. So when I hear that we don't know how we came to this resolution, that's a big concern. So listen to the message that was sent from the community and the board. Embrace the opportunity that's given to you now to think outside the box, come up with another solution, and move forward.
Del left. Oh, no, Del, it's right there.
I also just really want to thank you all. I can't imagine being on the school board at this point. I totally appreciate all the time and energy you're putting into this. My one thought is I think I would love to have Jess, was that her name? The community schools person back. I'm very curious about what she had to say. I couldn't really understand it. I couldn't see anything and I just got lost, but yep, thanks.
And can I just say a big thank you to Jen, who has been running the mic all over the room.
We have one more and then we can hopefully go home. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Callie Weller. I teach preschool and kindergarten this year at Callis. It's a busy place. I've been sitting here all night thinking about some of the original ideas. And I remember seeing at one point an idea of an early learning center, birth to age 5. And I thought, wow, that would really draw people to this community. Isn't that what we want? Do we not need daycares? Yes. Oh my gosh, do we not need daycares? And I would urge you to go back to some of your original ideas and thoughts around how to draw people here and what is truly needed and how we can use these buildings. Because I do believe we could turn one of these buildings into a fantastic early learning center. And I'm being a little biased, but it's what I do. But I also think it's what we need. It's what Vermont needs. It's what families need. Thank you.
All right. So,
Don't worry, I have to be somewhere early tomorrow, so I'll be quick. I just want to thank you, like everyone else has, for all of your work. And I know there's a lot more coming, and we all recognize that. And our community is very ready and eager to work with you. As a result of what's happened here tonight, I just want to be sure that the board and the administration, and I'm sorry to Gillian, because it's probably gonna be hard for her, to be very clear in what we are going to be telling or saying to our youngest, especially the students of Callis and Doty. Do they still have to worry about the same vote coming down next year, et cetera? It's important to their mental health to have some solidity in their lives. So I hope that could be a discussion at the next board meeting. I hope that could be a discussion at community forums, which I agree would be fabulous. They might be long, they're a lot of work, but that's really where you can get the community on board, as well as please give us data and information. If you could tell me that by closing Doty, my son would have very specific, and my daughter, very specific benefits and that they would be sustainable 5 years out throughout their entire elementary school careers, amazing. But that's not here and I haven't heard it yet. So again, please just be very aware of what our students are going to be thinking tomorrow. In June, what are they thinking in September? We need to make that clear for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, one more reiteration of gratitude, and also want to amplify that idea of having some external resources, some external experts come in and help us, help you with this. I think that's a really good idea that that Daniel raised. So I would encourage you to look for that. And as I think about you looking for that, I wonder where those are. Where are those resources for our Vermont school boards that are facing this? And I wonder if as school board members, maybe that's one of the things you need to be elevating. And Floor, maybe as chair, that's something you need to be elevating, is that we need more resources for school boards and as school administrations as you're facing this. So I would urge you to think of your role, as you said, as folks have said, don't leave here sort of downtrodden, our district doesn't like us. Think of this as we need to lead for our district and maybe lead for the state, so that we can all figure this out sort of together. I think you have a dual role here, so manage up a little bit to the state level too.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison, and then I think that's everybody.
I'm actually awkwardly, I feel that it's our responsibility as community members, and we have actually failed you, because how many of us have been here at these other meetings? How many of us have done our research first? Instead, we think something is being lost. But I haven't come to meetings very often. I only very rarely watch them. And I think it's unfair of us to say we want to have a better process when we're not the ones that are involved in making it happen. I don't think we can elect people and expect them to, I don't think we can expect them to go door to door. They don't get paid for this. It's a miserable job. And the only reason I'm saying this is because we have a reporter here, and I'm hoping that maybe part of that view will be that community members should try to get involved before the last day of the vote, so that the school board doesn't go through 14 months of preparation with incredible thoughts from several of them that were really nuanced and like really deeply thought out. And then now suddenly it's just nothing. We're back to the drawing board. And that feels really hard I feel like that's hard for them. So I'm sorry to you guys that I haven't come before, and I'm sorry that I haven't paid more attention. And I hope that all of us in our communities can do a better job to support the people that are doing the work.
Thank you. So now we'll be looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Michelle, second by Daniel. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.